We are Newsroom. Hello and welcome once again from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Evan Jansen. The show is always live and broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, between 9 and 12, we stream live on our streaming facility on YouTube. You can watch us back on demand on our YouTube channel as well. It's been a busy news weekend, busy news Monday. Elvis is ready to give us an update. But before we go to Elvis, let's just get a quick social media update from Anine. What's happening?
Oh yes, good morning, Eben. Busy weekend indeed, and South Africans are talking about two videos that are going viral online. That's of course the new alleged police brutality video in Krugersdorp and the Sonny Bill Williams special moment. So we'll take a look at what people are saying about that just a bit later.
Yeah, thanks, Anine. Will give us a little update in a short little while. Obviously standing by with the news, but let's take a question of the day first, quickly. Our question of the day now, water crisis. Talks of water shedding even doing the rounds here in the northern parts of South Africa. Snow in the south, heat wave in the north. How is the water crisis affecting you? Please send us your tweets, even pictures if you have, of how the water crisis is affecting you right now. Elvis is on top of that story. He'll give us an update straight away.
Water and Sanitation Minister Nomvula Mokonyane says the way in which water is used will be crucial in dealing with the current drought conditions. President Jacob Zuma has told the SABC News that he understands the students' plight of not having enough money to pay for their university fees. And Gauteng police say the 24-year-old man arrested in connection with a double murder and rape at Rhodes Park, Johannesburg, will appear in court today. Those are all your headlines, our top story this hour. Before we get to that top story, let's hear from Kendall what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you, Kendall.
Thank you very much, Elvis. This is what we've got in store for you in the sports on this very busy Monday morning. Toku Sefwale speaks to the SABC on his bid to replace Sepp Blatter as the president of FIFA. Orlando Pirates strike first in the battle for bragging rights as they beat Kaizer Chiefs 3-1 in the Soweto Derby. And New Zealand make history, becoming the first team to win the Rugby World Cup 3 times.
And it's history confirmed.
This as Roger Federer beats old rival Rafael Nadal for the first time in over 3 years to win his 7th Basel title. And that's it. Make sure you stick around for that. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. And right now, let's take a look at your top story this hour. The Water and Sanitation Minister Nomvula Mokonyane says the way in which water is used will be crucial in dealing with the current drought conditions. She was addressing a media conference about the nationwide water crisis in Glen Vista, south of Johannesburg. A number of provinces have been declared disaster areas due to the drought. Rand Water has said its water supply was under severe strain. Speaking to the SABC News earlier, this is what the minister said.
Already we have a number of municipalities that are now introducing water restrictions. Rand Water had to do this because of the extent of the evaporation of water because of the heat wave that was in Tshwane and in the areas of Johannesburg. Over years, South Africa never applied water demand management, and application of restrictions is amongst others that kind of a situation. You need to divert and store and make sure that you redistribute, and therefore you can't have a forever supply that does not actually provide an opportunity for maintenance, an opportunity for refill, but an opportunity for everybody to appreciate that this is a scarce resource that has to be utilized properly. Municipalities also have to enforce bylaws. I was just sharing with you now that in California, the city of Beverly Hills has actually been fined an amount of $61 million for failure to enforce bylaws. Here in South Africa, we have just cited the city of Mfuleni for failure to maintain their water treatment plants, where sewer is now spilling into the Vaal River system. The municipal manager has been cited because we can't afford a situation where conditional grants are given to municipalities. Municipalities are expected to do maintenance for every infrastructure they have, and they fail to do that. We are reviewing our laws, but we must also deal with behavioral change. Restrictions help to replenish.
Yeah. How are our water levels looking? I mean, where are we at right now?
We're not where we're supposed to be in terms of the dams, because dams are running almost dry. And we also have some of the dams that do have sufficient water, but they are located in areas where they are not needed. And hence, we are now putting a lot in terms of the construction of water storage facilities, huge tanks that would have to move to areas that are supplied, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal by Hazelmere. You rather have storage capacity that can then be used to distribute for both eThekwini and iLembe. We are also intervening in terms of incapacity as part of Back to Basics. We have actually, together with the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal, taken over Umkhanyakude municipality in KwaZulu-Natal so that then we make interventions. As I was coming to the studio, we're discussing with the Premier of the Northwest on the interventions we must do in the Northwest, in Ngakamudiri, but also in many other places. We have been given a go-ahead to go into those areas, but you have municipalities that resist change. And hence what President Zuma said in the National General Council of the ANC to say, let's review this thing of saying every municipality in South Africa can be a water service authority when they don't have a technical capacity, indeed, when they can't even produce a water master plan, and when they can't also generate revenue. And hence also through the demarcations board, we're looking at the capacity of local government and their viability. Yeah. But we also are looking at how you and me behave. How tonight, me and you are going to remove this makeup. Do we have to run a full tap, or do you have to work and ensure that you can afford a wet wipe? And do you have to use a full basin and running water to brush your teeth? Do you have to use a shower as a studio? Get in and get out. Yeah. Stop irrigating, and there must be penalties. Enforcement has to be applied. The other thing, we're moving away from the dependent on surface water. We'll explore groundwater. We've got sufficient groundwater. We're looking at desalination, cleaning of ocean water so that it can be used differently. We're also dealing with the issues of construction with the construction industry and the relevant departments, so that then we move away from also construction that is highly dependent on the use of water. In the environment of this heat, you have to mix cement and sand and build. You can find other means to build a wall. So it's those it can be business as usual. South Africa has been too comfortable in not managing our water services properly, and yet we are a water scarce country. We rely on water basins that we share with other countries, and hence we need peace and stability in Zimbabwe, we need peace and stability in Lesotho, we need cooperation with Mozambique and Swaziland, so that then we can draw water from Zambezi through Zimbabwe. We can extend the work we're doing not only for Gauteng, but for KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State through the Lesotho. So all of us must appreciate that this is a global issue. It needs to start with me and you, but it also has to be a thing that we appreciate. It can be business as usual. Indeed. Things must change.
It cannot be business as usual, she said, and that is very important, the minister indicated. So, we have a question for you today on water. How has it affected you? As a person, as an individual, as a consumer, as a user of water, how is the water crisis affecting you? And what are you doing at home to change your use of water? So let me know what's on your mind on the Twitter feed. As you know, you can let us know at any time, and we'll read your comments a little bit later in the program. Now, President Jacob Zuma says that he understands the students' plight of not having enough money to pay their university fees. Speaking in an interview with the SABC, the head of state addressed issues surrounding education problems in the country.
You have students from poor families. With time, I think this is becoming more of a challenge because the fees have been rising. And I've said this in the past publicly, that our education is really prohibitively expensive to poor, because if it keeps on going up and they can't even manage what they were doing from the beginning, that becomes a problem. The feeling of the students was that if it goes up next year, it means you are going to exclude a lot of students who are keen to study but who just not afford. There was an issue of solidarity, but also an issue of really challenging this to say we can't be deprived education. So it began to gain sympathy. I must say, I also said this in public, that I sympathize with the students.
And that's your news for now. Yeben is standing by with more of your news and interviews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elvis. It's a busy Monday morning, isn't it? Elvis will be back with us at the top of the hour. That's 10 o'clock with another complete roundup with all the stories that you're seeing in the news. Now, one of them that will be picking up again this week, of course, the Supreme Court of Appeal will hear the appeal in the Oscar Pistorius case tomorrow, just more than 10 days after being released from prison under correctional supervision. The state will be appealing the athlete's culpable homicide conviction, arguing that he should have been found guilty of murder. Now, joining us from Bloemfontein this morning, he's standing at Naval Hill, above the City of Roses. Richard Newton is there. Very good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning, Eben.
One wouldn't really say Bloemfontein to be the windy city, but it's a bit windy where you are, Richard. But just set the scene for us quickly ahead of what will be a very interesting case in the Supreme Court there tomorrow.
Yes, Eben, you're right. Very windy here in Bloemfontein today. But as regard the case, it's the eyes of not only the legal fraternity, but the wider public. And when I say wider, obviously even much wider than our borders, will be on the Supreme Court of Appeal tomorrow for that appeal. Speaking to the people working at the court, they say there's been a massive interest from media, international as well as local. And of course, everyone wants to see where this case is going to. It garnered so much attention at the time, even with when the appeal was put in by the state saying that they were looking for a murder charge, not culpable homicide, and now everyone wants to see where this will go, given that Oscar is out on parole. But with me I have Advocate Ines Besaidnout, who is the director of the law clinic at the Free State University. First of all, thanks very much for joining us. If we look at the case coming up tomorrow, it's not an issue of new evidence or new witnesses. What will they actually be debating in court?
Thank you, Richard. Tomorrow, we must remember that we will have a bench consisting of 5 judges of the Supreme Court of Appeal, of which the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Judge Lex Mpati, will also be presiding in the proceedings. Now, we must remember it's only a day that has been set aside for the appeal, and arguments will be heard, but the court will also have the written submissions from the state as well as from the defence side to base its finding on eventually. So no witnesses will be led, and no new evidence will be laid at this stage. Only oral arguments as well as the written submissions, and the trial record, of course, will be taken into account in order to make a decision.
And when we talk about this appeal, we're talking about the judgment. How does sentencing come into this? If something does change here, will the sentencing be automatic, or how will that work?
We have to remember that in this case, the state appealed the judgment on a question of law. Now, that is one of the contentious issues that will be argued tomorrow, whether this is a question of law or indeed a question of fact. Be as it may, the Court on Appeal have the discretion to set aside the judgment or to confirm the judgment, and if setting aside the judgment of the trial court, the court can refer the case back to the trial court for new evidence, or even make a totally new decision on the matter, on the evidence before the court. So if that happens and the court confirms, say, a sentence or a judgment of murder, the court can then also interfere with the sentence or refer the matter back to the trial court for sentencing purposes.
Thank you very much for that. Yeben, that was Advocate Ines Besaidnout from the Free State University, the director of the law clinic there, giving us a little bit more clarity on that, because, of course, the interest here is massive. And you'll remember from when the case was actually on itself, every man on the street became an expert, and we heard a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily correct as far as court proceedings are concerned. And all eyes, as I say, legal fraternity and the wider public on Bloemfontein tomorrow.
Richard, before we wrap up what's happening there, just tell us quickly about the media interest. I know it's always massive when Oscar's in court, but also how are we preparing for tomorrow?
Well, of course, it will be a live feed coming out of the court, which in itself is quite unusual for the Supreme Court of Appeal. But there will be a live feed coming out, which will then be passed on to all the broadcasters, local and international. We will have our own set of journalists who've been following this case right from the start. Griselda Lewis, Makmoba will be with us as well tomorrow to give their insight and their continuation of how the case has been going. And we have a large international contingent, of course, also following proceedings here. It's obviously anticipated that judgment will be reserved. We won't get final answers tomorrow, but at least everyone will be able to see where it's going and to be able to have analysis of what they anticipate the court will do.
No, Richard, it's also the students are also heading back to classes there at University of Bloemfontein. Before I let you go, just give us a quick wrap. What's happening around the campuses there?
Well, it's back to normal, they say, academically and administratively today as the learners or the students go back to write their exams. But you will know, Eben, from your experiences with other provinces as well, other universities, that there is a split in the student body about whether they should go back, whether they have achieved what they wanted to achieve. And, of course, the issues of outsourcing workers, of basic minimum wage for the workers is now also on the table. So it's one of these situations we'll have to monitor and see whether all students go back or whether we can still expect some unhappiness and some demonstrations and non-writing of exams.
Richard, thank you very much for that update. That is our special correspondent, Richard Newton, coming to you live from Naval Hill above Bloemfontein. We just want to apologize for the picture quality. As you saw, it was a little bit windy there and we had some technical difficulties, but I trust we could all understand what happened there. Very, very important day in Bloemfontein tomorrow, and of course give us an update on what's happening on the campuses there. Now, I can tell you that various Western Cape universities are expected to resume their academic activities today. The institutions were closed about 2 weeks ago following more violent student protests linked to the hashtag Fees Must Fall campaign. Classes and exams have now been rescheduled to make up for lost time. Violent student protests continued at the University of the Western Cape this past weekend, forcing management to seek an urgent court interdict there. Now, our reporter Vanessa Puna is at the University of the Western Cape this morning. Very good morning to you, Vanessa. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you, Eben. Thank you.
Vanessa, just give us a quick update. It looks rather tense there if we see high police presence and so forth. What is coming out of the University of the Western Cape at the moment?
Eben, yes, as you see just behind me, very strong security measures in place this morning here at the University of the Western Cape. All cars are being checked thoroughly for student cards. Those who do not have student cards, those who are not students or staff, will not be allowed into campus as classes resume today after almost 2 weeks following the student protests that have erupted not only at this university but at campuses across the country. Now, I spoke to Lutando Chalibongo, who is a spokesperson for the university. This morning, they are currently in a meeting, locked in a meeting, as their operation, or rather UWC Reclaim, starts today. And this is to reclaim the university following this weekend again. We've seen at least 2 fires being started on campus, as well as reports of students intimidating others to join them in the protest action. Also this morning, I've spoken to Akona Landu, who is the SRC president here at the University of the Western Cape. They are meeting with SRC affiliates this morning to give them feedback in terms of the management or the meeting with management that they had. Now, I've asked Akona to deliberate, to explain to me exactly what has been agreed between the SRC and the university management, but at this stage she could not divulge because she was going into a meeting, and I expect that information, Eben, to be coming through a little later on. But as you can see, security rather tight here, campus security as well as external security officers brought in here at the University of the Western Cape, where the university says that they will not tolerate a handful of student protesters still holding the entire institution to ransom this morning.
Just tell us about that seeming split within the student movement itself. We've seen it across the country. Many students want to go back to class, want to write exams. But is it as small a group that's holding the rest to ransom as is being reported?
Eben, yes. On Friday, the University of the Western Cape obtained a court order and interdict against a group of 11 students and also others that are affiliating themselves with the kind of destruction we've seen taking place on campus. But when I've spoken to university management as well as the SRC this morning, what they are telling me, and the sense that I am getting, Eben, is that students generally want to complete their exams. Students that I've been speaking to outside of this campus that also study at UWC have been saying that they are, in their terms, disgusted at not being able to write their exams on time after having prepared for this final exams all year long. So it would appear, Eben, at this stage as that a lot of students are actually wanting to complete their exams. I know that university management, Lutando Chalibongo, earlier told me that the university management has also received a number of letters from students appealing to them to make it possible for them to write their final exams. So yes, Eben, I do see that there is a huge split, and I don't think that at this point in time there are hordes or big numbers of students who are not wanting to go and write the exams. I think that the majority do want just that.
And when do we expect the new exam schedule to come out for UWC?
Eben, I do expect that the exams will go ahead on the 9th. I think that is the date that I've read so far, that the 9th, which is next week's. The exams will go ahead here at UWC. I'm not quite certain as to whether a date has been set for other institutions, but I know at this institution it has been delayed by yet another week. So I could expect exams to start within the week, Eben.
And quickly, the other universities, Cape Peninsula, University of Technology and UCT, are they back in class? Are they looking on track to write exams then as well?
Eben, it's not clear at this stage exactly when CPUT as well as UCT will commence with their examinations. I do know that at the weekend on Friday, the library at UCT was opened for students to use it. And as the reports that have been coming through from our team on the ground there was that at that point, students were trickling in. So not hordes and masses of students as yet. And I do feel, Eben, after having witnessed the kind of violence that went with the student protest over the last week in particular, I do think the sense would have been for a lot of students to stay home, do their studying at home, and then returning to campus once things are quiet.
Vanessa, thank you very much for that update. As you can see, it's still quite tense at the University of the Western Cape, where, well, the university body are saying that the entire campus is being held ransom by a small group of vandals that are causing quite extensive damage on campus. There have been a couple of fires reported over the weekend. Vanessa will keep us updated how things develop there. But they're hopeful to be back in class today and to carry on with exams from Monday next week. Now, time for Anine to give us a quick update. What's been happening? Well, lots has been happening on social media. There's a claim of police brutality. Yes. There are some other stories that are in the news, and people have really been busy around these instances. Isn't it so, Anine?
Well, Eben, let me tell you, let's just first start with that local story about the alleged police brutality. Here we have a photo of the video. It's actually very graphic, and we're not going to be playing it today on your television screen, unfortunately. But there we go. The story came to air yesterday by the Sunday Times. And what we see in this video, especially the video that the Sunday Times uploaded online, Eben, is two camera angles from CCTV footage in Krugersdorp. The police actually got a tip-off that a robbery was going to take place at a shop, and this is how they managed to track down the suspect. We see from the one camera angle only a police van. We can't really see with the plants that you see outside of this house what's happening from that angle. But the next angle, we see that the suspect was shot in the arm. He fell to the ground, lost his firearm. Then after that, we see police talking to each other. We see him being shot again, and we see in the chest, and then we see him being kicked.
The issue around the brutality is the fact in this video, I've seen it, the guy shoots about 7 or 8 rounds, live rounds, at the police before he's taken down. What is the issue with this? The issue, the fact that he was shot after he was subdued?
Well, even I can tell you, it seems to be that there are two videos doing the rounds. Because in the specific video I watched that the Sunday Times uploaded with the two different camera angles, that's not shown. But then I have heard, my colleagues have told me about another video that's doing the round that I'm trying to track down, and I'm trying to see who uploaded that, where he actually shot at the police first. But even I think people on social media are outraged by the fact that he lost his firearm. and then he's lying on the ground, not really, when he's lying on the ground, he's not really doing anything to harm the police, but then he still gets shot and kicked. So that is what the massive outcry is about on social media. Let's just take a look what people are tweeting about this.
Yep.
The police have also sent out a tweet, Eben. I can tell you the Gauteng police commenting on the specific story. I think their comment says that they are investigating this entire situation. So we can see, we'll probably see more in the week to come around exactly what happened. The police officers will be asked what exactly happened. I don't know if we have those tweets ready, because people then are also commenting on this situation and they're calling it alleged police brutality. And you can understand why the police has been in a bad light. In the last year, at least, with the Mido Masia case, we've seen cases like that. Of course, Marikana. So you can understand the kind of outrage there is around that. But let's just go on to the next video. Even this, at least, is a happy story. Sonny Bill Williams, he definitely is the man of the moment, the social media star of the Rugby World Cup, and that, of course, is because he gave away his medal. He gave away his medal to a 15-year-old Charlie Lyons, who just wanted to meet his hero, Evan, and then he got smoked by police. But he managed to get to his hero. Got the medal.
I can give you some good news now. New Zealand Rugby announced this morning they've reissued a new medal to Sonny Bill because this was such an outstanding moment that he created by giving his medal away. They're going to give him a brand new medal in this case. So all's well that ends well, I suppose.
Yes, and there's also a video up on that, Evan, a Rugby Nation. You can search YouTube for that. Then you can watch the entire moment. Really a special moment. Really just such a nice act from Sonny Bill Williams. I don't know if we're going to look at those tweets, but then moving on, I can tell you we've just spoken about the universities. I'm going to have a close look at the Fees Must Fall hashtag. Maybe something will come out today. But we are expecting, I mean, as we saw Vanessa say, that there is a heavy police presence, especially at the Cape Town universities, that things will go back to normal today. So we'll see what the students have to say today and what they're uploading on social media.
Anine, thank you very much for that update. Of course, Anine will also bring us Movember. Movember has started. I'm not participating this month, just in case you're worried. Not participating in Movember, but let's take a look at what's happening in the courts today. We start here in Johannesburg, where, of course, a 24-year-old man was arrested. Now, that was in connection with the killing of Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa Nakula's son, who was scheduled to appear in the Magistrates Court. And still in Johannesburg, another 24-year-old man is alleged to be connected with a horrific attack on two couples at Rhodes Park in Kensington, also in Johannesburg, also expected in the Magistrates Court today. The man is suspected to have been part of a 12-man gang who attacked the two couples on that fateful day. Now, the Minister of Sanitation, Water, Nomvula Mokonyane, warned that South Africa is facing severe water crisis and that the department might have to reduce water supply if the current drought continues. Now, the department has set aside more than 300 million rand for the implementation of relief strategies. Our question of the day deals exactly with that. It is, how is the water crisis affecting you? That's what we'd like you to tell us on our social media feeds. Go to Facebook, go to Twitter, leave us a message. We'll put it up and we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's the question. Now, we also take a look at some of the comments. Hassan Mohammed, we've missed. Kello talks about fresh water is a precious resource. Never use it superfluously. Please save water now. Yes, we have to save water. We have to change the way we work with water in South Africa. Then Rich Spoiled Brat says, save water. I left the tap open and my geyser is leaking. Yes, Rich Spoiled Brat. Only when you don't have it will you know what it's worth. Adam Wen says, Joburg water has no substitute. All living things needs water to survive. Economy will collapse without water. Water is life. Save water. Tell that to the rich spoiled brat who tells us that he's leaving his tap open there, Adam. Thank you very much. Johannesburg Water, this is the official feed, says there are a number of ways to save water, and it all starts with you. Share water-saving tips with those around you. Please do so. Don't leave your taps open. Don't waste water. Don't take the extra long shower. It's not necessary. Use water sparingly. Let's take a quick look at what's happening around the globe. We'll start in Europe, where the Times reports that Jeremy Corbyn stunned his opponents last night after Labour in Scotland voted to scrap Britain's nuclear weapons system. That's a big wow. Then we move to the New York International Times that reports a day of mourning was held yesterday for the 224 who died in the Egyptian Sinai crash, while the transportation minister there said the flight recorders have been found. Finally, in China, the South China Morning Post talks about China's military release photos of Navy planes training with missiles in the South China Sea. The move, experts say, is aimed at protesting the patrol of a U.S. warship in waters Beijing claims to have sovereignty over. Time for us to take a break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
At Philips, we wake up every morning and ask, how can innovation make a difference to you? How can thousands of LEDs bring the pyramids to life and light up hearts? How can an air fryer make delicious traditional meals with up to 80% less fat? How can portable ultrasound be part of a program to help lower infant mortality in Uganda? Because the only innovation that really matters is innovation that matters to you. Innovation and you. Philips.
In Africa, mobile devices are tools to make payments, browse the internet, and keep governments in check with social media forums.
It's given an average African too much power in their hands.
And tech creativity is solving some of the continent's problems.
Everything is internet-driven.
And on Network, we tell you how Africans are using technology and social media in their everyday lives.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Welcome back. You're still with us here in Newsroom now. The Western Cape Biodiversity Agency, Cape Nature, has recorded a total of 153 fires in the last financial year. Cape Nature says this is the highest number in nearly 2 decades. The fires has put significant strain on Cape Nature's resources. Firefighters are gearing up for the approaching fire period commencing next month. Now, preparations have been ongoing for several months already to ensure the highest level of preparedness. Now, for the upcoming season, volunteer wildfire services recruitment has doubled from previous years. Colin Diner is the head of disaster management in the Western Cape, and he joins us in our studio in Sea Point this morning. A very good morning to you, Colin. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
From the numbers, 153 in the last financial year, is a disaster on our hands? Should we be very, very concerned about the rise in the statistic?
Even those fires are the fires that are in the Cape Nature territories. You know, in a year, the Western Cape deals with, in terms of wildfires, around 7,000 fires. Now, last year was a particularly hectic year for us. It kept us extremely busy. You know, during February, March, we had 4 major fires going on. The Peninsula one obviously got a lot of attention, but we had 3 others, you know, in the province. I don't think we should be concerned that there's a disaster happening. We do a lot of preparation. Our preparation starts when the season ends, which is normally the end of March. So although it's very hectic and it is really a major sort of operation, we do a lot of planning for it.
What is the loss, the sort of rand value, and then in terms of the sort of human aspect of it, with the losses that we incur annually with regards to fires?
Yeah, it's difficult to quantify the losses in terms of rand value because of, you know, the large number of fires. We try and look obviously at specifics like the harvest period on the West Coast where we put aircraft down. Last year we prevented a 800 million rand damage. As far as life is concerned, we don't have the kind of high life loss that you would see in other countries that have the same kind of wildfires. But we did have a very tragic year last year when we lost 2 of our pilots and one of our crew members, as well as a firefighter. So the human loss is not that high, but it is, it hits us very hard.
How much does it cost to fight a wildfire per day then, if I can ask that, a rough estimate?
To fight a wildfire, remember that our biggest cost goes into our aerial resources. So, putting what we call a sortie, which are 2 fixed-wing bombers, a spotter aircraft and a helicopter in the air, runs to about, in excess of 65,000 Rand an hour. When we were fighting the Peninsula fires between the city of Cape Town and ourselves, it was around R1 million a day. So it's quite a high cost.
Yeah, it is quite high cost. Just quickly, you've done research now. What is the research saying about how these fires are starting?
We see it over the Christmas period and over the holiday period. We have a lot of fires starting, which are mostly caused by, humans, be it human error or be it people purposely starting the fires. And then we also have, the temperatures get extremely high, and if you've got high temperatures, high wind, and you've got an area that hasn't burnt for a very long time, that's a recipe for disaster. The smallest thing can, a spark. In fact, the Cape Point fire last year, just when we were getting everything under control, that fire started, and that was actually started by lightning. So, there's various causes. It's very difficult, though, to be able to, to prove humans starting it unless, they haven't been caught literally in the act.
Now, we're less than a month away from fire season in the Western Cape. Of course, in the northern parts of the country, we're well into the hottest parts of the year and so forth. Just quickly tell us about your state of preparedness and what are you putting in play this year that's maybe a little bit different?
Well, we, as I said, we do a lot of planning. We do a good recap of the previous season in around April, and then we start our planning, and that carries on. We can never do too much of that. So what we've done for this year is we have around 30 aircraft which are placed strategically. So we make use of our geographic information systems, and then we look at where the best places will be to place the aircraft in terms of, felt age, risk, that kind of thing. So we'll have 30 aircraft. We also have a contingency over and above the resources that we have in terms of firefighters that we can call on an extra 500 if we need them. And we did that earlier this year, if you can recall, in February. So we have a lot of contingencies in place. What we also do is we have our provincial fire working group, and what they do is it is all the agencies. So it's volunteer wildfire services. It's all the district municipalities that are responsible, the Metro, Cape Nature, Sand Parks, and ourselves. And so we make sure that we send out a message, the same message in terms of our prevention. We spend a lot of time on fire safety education. And then obviously when we respond, we work under the same command system, which of course, is good because then we're able to optimally use our resources.
Thank you for joining us this morning. That's Colin Diner. He's the head of disaster management in the Western Cape. And the plea is, of course, water is scarce. Don't make fires. Don't throw cigarette butts out. Let's not start fires during fire season. Now, Science and Technology, the Science and Technology Minister and the chairperson of the ANC's National Executive Subcommittee on Education and Health, Naledi Pandor, said they support the decision taken by Higher Education Minister Blade Nzimande to convert the National Student Financial Aid Scheme's loans to full bursaries now upon graduation. This comes after a nationwide Fees Must Fall campaign that left, well, most of the country's universities closed or at risk of not even completing exams this year. Let's take a look. The comments have been coming in thick and fast around this one. Let's have a look at some of the comments. This one from Lufuno Matiba says, people are always going to complain about something. Talk about NSFAS, of course. Peaceful Fall says, what about us who are too rich for NSFAS? Who will be paying off our student loans with the banks? Ask Ms. Lebs. Yes. That's too rich. Ntokozosi, unfortunately, we've lost our comment segment. Now, time for us to take a short little break. Newsroom will be back with more right after this.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless. The all-new Audi Q7.
SABC News. We report, contextualize, and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly, and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful, and top-quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate, and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, last week, Police Minister Nadine Nhleko announced that there's been an 81% reduction in the loss of police firearms in the last 5 years. This after Nhleko faced tough questions in the National Assembly about the amount of officers who lose their guns. With close to 60 police officers who've been killed this year alone, many questions about how firearms in the country are managed have also been asked in recent times. Now, someone who's done a lot of research on this is the Director of the Safety and Violence Initiative at the University of Cape Town, Guy Lamb, and he joins us now from, well, he's in our Cape Town studio. We go back to the mother city. Good morning to you, Guy. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Evan. Thank you.
The Minister says that biannual and annual inspections and stock take has helped lead to this 81% reduction that was announced. Does that sound right to you?
It has been an 81% reduction, but I think it's slightly misleading because what happens is we need to look at sort of police firearm losses over quite an extensive period of time. So in sort of 2009, 2010, there was major inspections that happened, and they were able to then provide more accurate reports. So it's good news. Inspections and stock taking has shown that there's been a reduction in this. But I think the true reflection is we need to look at what's been happening since 2001, 2002, and the average over sort of the past 12, 13 years has been around 2,000 losses per year. So the past financial year, past reporting year, there were 743 firearms lost. So that's good news, but it's not as good as 81% as reported over the past few years.
Now, what does your research show in terms of the biggest reasons for officers losing their firearms in South Africa?
Well, I mean, it's around officers do lose, but there's also weapons that just cannot be accounted for. So there are those that are in operational positions that lose them when during the course of duties, that they actually are out there doing patrols, or they've gone off duty and they happen to be on their way home or somewhere else, and their firearm is stolen from them then. The police, in their reporting, have attempted to reduce thefts of weapons or loss of weapons when police are deployed on operational duties, that they've issued them with retention cords on their weapons. They've issued them with safes as well to try and reduce the risk of thefts. And it does seem to have been working, but we don't have a lot of detailed information around, the police don't release a lot of detailed information around exactly what are the circumstances under which police lose their firearms.
Just paint us a picture quickly. How big is the illegal firearms trade here in South Africa, and what impact do you see it's having on crime?
Well, I mean, it's anyone's guess. I mean, back in the late 90s, the guess was that it was around sort of 500,000 illegal firearms in the market. We know from dynamics over the past 10 to 15 years that most weapons that enter the illegal market come from licensed firearm holders, from SAPs, from soldiers, from the SANDF, from private security industry. We do know that the number of loss and thefts, not only in the police but from licensed firearm owners, has gone down. And we also know that there's very few weapons flowing into South Africa from outside sources. So we can surmise that the pool of illegal firearms has gone down. But of course, this can present a risk to police as well, because if criminals are looking for firearms and there are less licensed firearms civilians out there, you know that you can sort of source a firearm from a police officer, so you may very well target a police officer for his firearm.
How big a problem is that? We see that a lot of off-duty police officers are attacked in South Africa. Is it specifically to get the weapon off them in most cases, you think?
It's very difficult to say. I mean, we've seen in media reports that police officials have been attacked and their firearms have been stolen. We're not sure if that's the primary reason for attacking the police official. You know, in reports, SAP's reports in the past, they've kind of said, no, that's not the primary reason. But I think in certain places, if we look at what the SAPs have released in data in places like Soweto, Johannesburg Central, Pretoria Central, which have the highest reports of firearms being lost or stolen by SAPs members, it may possibly be one of the reasons that police are attacked. We know in places like in Younger in the Western Cape, where police officials recently were attacked to get hold of their firearms.
And I see from the numbers that the Western Cape is faring somewhat better than the rest of South Africa when it comes to the controls of confiscated firearms and other weapons. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I mean, this is slightly different to the police losing or police control of the firearms that their members have. Confiscated firearms, these are the sort of 13 store firearms. Those are what are stored in police safes or armories. And I think this largely comes down to station management. And I think one can't really make provincial kind of determinations here, but it largely depends on how the station commander is managing their 13 store and their armories. And those who run fairly tight ships generally have very low losses or thefts of firearms from their 13 stores. But where stations are being poorly managed, we see high levels of loss.
What more can be done or needs to be done, and who needs to be doing it in order for us to come to grips with this problem?
The problem around what? Loss and theft of police firearms?
Both. And illegal weapons.
Well, I mean, and it's illegal weapons, but it's around, I think, learning the lessons from what's happening at good stations. So where there are good plans of action, good management plans in place, good stock taking, good weapons management systems at the station. I think it's about taking learnings from those and applying them in stations where more interventions are required. I think there's analysis required in areas where police officers are a much higher risk of being shot and having their firearms removed, to look at those particular circumstances and bring in measures to try and address that, such as not taking a weapon with you when you're off duty in kind of very high-risk areas. Again, I understand sometimes there's a need to do that, but in places where there's very high risk, maybe alternatives need to be pursued.
Thank you very much, Guy Lamb. That's Guy Lamb coming to you live from Cape Town. Of course, he is he's the director of the Safety and Violence Initiative at the University of Cape Town. We talk about police. Well, the numbers are down, police losing their weapons, but illegal firearms continue to be a problem here in South Africa. Now, Tsietse Minari has just joined us here in studio. I want to talk to him about a couple of things before you get into the weather today. We have polar opposites right now. We've got snow and storms in the south, and we've got a heat wave in the north of the country. Yeah. It almost looks like a kind of doomsday scenario. What's going on, man?
Yeah, well, there's been possibilities of snow since just about last night. Yeah. Yeah, and then over the northwestern side, it's quite hot and dry, including most parts of Botswana as well as over Namibia. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't just say doomsday just yet. The heavy rainfall and the snow that we're experiencing over the Eastern Cape is definitely what we need, and we want it to spread across the country. But you know how weather systems work. You get one on the other side and then the other on the opposite end. Yeah,
now I heard something before you go into the report. I heard something about the the water restrictions. That's coming in. Water shedding might be in the pipeline because of drought. Do you expect it to go that sort of route?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a short while. But yeah, you kind of on the right path. We need to actually start putting restrictions on, especially in municipalities that are not managing their water well, in a sense that, you know, they need to be heavy restrictions on usage as well as on management in terms of cleaning it and making sure it is up to scratch for the communities, because, you know, it is a constitutional right for everybody to get clean, free running water, you know, but the free part is a little bit difficult to run with at the moment.
I saw an alarming tweet this weekend. Somebody put up, said the outlook for the next 2 months is quite dry still.
Yes. Yeah.
And what does that mean if we continue into December, into January, even with very little rain here in the north?
Look, unfortunately, it looks like that, especially in places such as the Northwest Province, Free State, going here, Gauteng and Limpopo, is that the forecasts are very bleak. I mean, you're not expecting sufficient rain, good rain for the next month or two. Yeah, so that's quite difficult for us. And let's hope the rainfall towards Lesotho as well as over Swaziland, they get a lot of it, because we get some of our water supplies from our neighboring countries. Yeah, so that could be quite helpful for us.
Well, to give us some better news on the outlook, at least for this week. Tietse Minari with a complete weather update for us.
All right, welcome from the weather desk. Let's have a look at this weather, and we'll look at this satellite image. Very interesting to see here. I wanted to show you. Just have a look at this tropical cyclone here closer towards the UAE. It is expected to bring some heavy rain towards very dry areas. Otherwise, in general, over the central parts, over the Congos and much of the tropical areas, it is expected to be quite rainy and humid, and possibilities of good showers are coming in over those central parts. And it is going to continue so maybe for the next couple of days or so, depending on how severe those moisture and the weather systems remain over the central regions. Now, for Southern Africa, this is what we mentioned earlier on, possibility of snowfalls and also heavy rainfall towards the southeastern parts of the country. But as you move towards the northwestern parts, it's dry and clear, no chance of rain for the next couple of days. The cold front has now moved out completely, leaving cooler conditions behind it. What you also need to look out for is possibilities of gale force winds, and with that, high seas that are expected there. So I know some adrenaline junkies might be going out there for a surf, but please do be careful. We're expecting swells as high as around 6 to 7 meters, so that's quite high. For tomorrow, even again, clear conditions and dry weather for much of the west, but rainy conditions for the east, as we're seeing a low pressure cell all the way into the Mozambican Channel, bringing good rains towards Madagascar, which is very good, and it's exactly what we need. Sunny skies are expected for today over the interior, temperatures into the lower 20s. So the good news is that most of the heat waves are now gone. Temperatures are looking much better, except if you're in Musina, though. Musina temperatures there are still very high at 41 degrees. But towards the southwestern regions, you see some teens. Look at Graaff-Reinet at 13, possibilities of snow expected there. 17 for Beaufort West as well as George, going towards Cape Agulhas. Cape Town, 18 degrees. Yeah, so cooler conditions for now. We can maybe get a bit of a breather in terms of the hot weather that we've been going through. Namibia, 26 for Keetmanshoop. Remember, this has dropped by almost 10 degrees. So hot weather also alleviated along the southern part of Namibia. Chirongo still hot. 34, 35 for Oshakati. So those northwestern regions are still very, very hot. Look at Botswana as well. Most parts of the Kalahari into the upper 30s. Maun, 36 degrees. Francistown at 39. And then possibilities of showers for some parts of Zimbabwe. Kariba still very hot at 40 degrees. Nothing changes much here, except for Tete increasing to 44. Chimoyo as well as Quelimane, those joining the pack in the 40s. So hot weather is expected along those parts. Maputo is at 30 degrees. Just have a look at Madagascar. This is where the good news is now. Rainfall is expected right across the southern parts, moving towards the north. Even places such as Mahajanga also now expecting rain. So there's a good chance, up to 60% chance of rain is expected. Now, for holiday makers, here are the islands. Comoros, 31 degrees. An average of just around 30 is expected towards the Seychelles. And Mauritius is slightly hotter at 33 degrees. That's it for your weather. Stay tuned. There will be more here on SABC News.
Now, Tietse Minari has just told us that there's going to be snow in November, and he makes out as if this is normal. Snow in November?
My life is not very normal, so I take what I get.
Snow in November?
Yeah,
that should be a little bit concerning,
absolutely does not make sense. Climate change, the climate is changing globally and definitely for us in South Africa as well. You saw a cold front passing by. That should have alarmed you already over Saturday and Sunday when we saw the cold front coming in November. Yeah, so
snow in November. This is very concerning. We need to change the way that we are affecting our planet, because it is clear for all to see that the world is changing, the planet is changing, and let's hope the planet does not reject us completely. Tsetse Manore, thank you very much for that update. It's always nice to have him with us. He gives us a complete roundup, not just of the weather, but green issues, the environment, and how all of this impacts on your and my life. We've got 5 minutes to go until the top of the hour. We're going to take a longer break, obviously standing by to give us a complete wrap when we're back.
The son of Africa, Trevor Noah, is leaving America in stitches.
I never dreamed that I would one day have, well, two things really. An indoor toilet and a job as host of The Daily Show.
We are the first to bring you the latest films around the globe.
Dear white people, the minimum requirement of black friends needed to not seem racist has just been raised to 2.
Cobbins Asako is a gifted blind musician, a master of soothing notes from the piano.
I love to sit behind the piano. That also helps me find inspiration.
Join Refilo Mulwa every Friday for that 1-hour weekly dose of art and entertainment news at 9 p.m. on Trends.
I'm Peter Ndoro. And I'm Prabhakshini Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and Hauser-Busch InBev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful.
Have you ever considered skin bleaching? Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally. Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
And to those who have given their lives, praises to thee. All thy children shall reap what you've sown. This continent my brothers and sisters, stand up and sing. Eduardo Montani is not gone. Freddy Mo, Freddy, your eternal flame has shown us the light of dawn. A luta continua, a luta continua, continua.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time. It's the 2nd of November 2015. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. This is Newsroom. We are broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. You have to stay with us as we bring you the latest from here and around the globe. I'm Elvis Preslin. Let's now take a look at all your headlines. Water and Sanitation Minister Nomvula Mokonyane says the way in which water is used will be crucial in dealing with the current drought conditions. President Jacob Zuma has told SABC News that he understands the students' plight of not having enough money to pay for their university fees. And Gauteng police say the 24-year-old man arrested in connection with a double murder and rape at Rhodes Park in Johannesburg will appear in court today. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what you have in store for us in the sports news.
Now, thank you very much, Elvis. It was a humdinger of a weekend. In fact, this is what we've got in store for you in the sports today. Now, Tokyo Safale speaks to the SABC on his bid to replace Sepp Blatter as the president of FIFA. And Orlando Pirates strike first in the battle for bragging rights as they beat Kaizer Chiefs 3-1 in the Soweto Derby. And New Zealand make history, becoming the first team to win the Rugby World Cup 3 times.
And it's history confirmed.
And Roger Federer beats old rival Rafael Nadal for the first time in over 3 years to win the 7th Basel title. And that's exactly where we leave it for now, but back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Let's now take a look at your top story this hour. Water and Sanitation Minister Nomvula Mokonyane says the way in which water is used will be crucial in dealing with the current drought conditions. She was addressing a media conference about the nationwide water crisis in Glen Vista, south of Johannesburg. A number of provinces have been declared disaster areas due to the drought. Rand Water has said its water supply was under severe strain. We first ask her how far we are from water restrictions.
Already we have a number of municipalities that are now introducing water restrictions. Rand Water had to do this because of the extent of the evaporation of water because of the heat wave that was in Tshwane and in the areas of Johannesburg. Over years, South Africa never applied water demand management, and application of restrictions is, amongst others, that kind of a situation. You need to divert and store and make sure that you redistribute, and therefore you can't have a forever supply that does not actually provide an opportunity for maintenance, an opportunity for refill, but an opportunity for everybody to appreciate that this is a scarce resource that has to be utilized properly. Municipalities also have to enforce bylaws. I was just sharing with you now that in California, the city of Beverly Hills has actually been fined an amount of $61 million for failure to enforce bylaws. Here in South Africa, we have just cited the city of Mfuleni for failure to maintain their water treatment plants, where sewer is now spilling into the Vaal River system. The municipal manager has been cited because we can't afford a situation where conditional grants are given to municipalities. Municipalities are expected to do maintenance for every infrastructure they have, and they fail to do that. We are reviewing our laws, but we must also deal with behavioral change. Restrictions help to replenish.
Yeah. How are our water levels looking? I mean, where are we at right now?
We're not where we're supposed to be in terms of the dams, because dams are running almost dry. And we also have some of the dams that do have sufficient water, but they are located in areas where they are not needed. And hence, we are now putting a lot in terms of the construction of water storage facilities, huge tanks that would have to move to areas that are supplied, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal by Hazelmere. You rather have storage capacity that can then be used to distribute for both eThekwini and iLembe. We are also intervening in terms of incapacity as part of Back to Basics. We have actually, together with the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal, taken over Umkhanyakude municipality in KwaZulu-Natal so that then we make interventions. As I was coming to the studio, we're discussing with the Premier of the Northwest on the interventions we must do in the Northwest, in Ngakamudiri, but also in many other places. We have been given a go-ahead to go into those areas, but you have municipalities that resist change. And hence what President Zuma said in the National General Council of the ANC to say, let's review this thing of saying every municipality in South Africa can be a water service authority when they don't have a technical capacity, indeed, when they can't even produce a water master plan, and when they can't also generate revenue. And hence also through the demarcations board, we're looking at the capacity of local government and their viability. Yeah. But we also are looking at how you and me behave. How tonight, me and you are going to remove this makeup. Do we have to run a full tap, or do you have to work and ensure that you can afford a wet wipe? And do you have to use a full basin and running water to brush your teeth? Do you have to use a shower as a studio? Get in and get out. Yeah. Stop irrigating, and there must be penalties. Enforcement has to be applied. The other thing, we're moving away from the dependent on surface water. We'll explore groundwater. We've got sufficient groundwater. We're looking at desalination, cleaning of ocean water so that it can be used differently. We're also dealing with the issues of construction with the construction industry and the relevant departments, so that then we move away from also construction that is highly dependent on the use of water. In the environment of this heat, you have to mix cement and sand and build. You can find other means to build a wall. So it's those it can be business as usual. South Africa has been too comfortable in not managing our water services properly, and yet we are a water scarce country. We rely on water basins that we share with other countries, and hence we need peace and stability in Zimbabwe, we need peace and stability in Lesotho, we need cooperation with Mozambique and Swaziland, so that then we can draw water from Zambezi through Zimbabwe. We can extend the work we're doing not only for Gauteng, but for KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State through the Lesotho. So all of us must appreciate that this is a global issue. It needs to start with me and you, but it also has to be a thing that we appreciate. It can be business as usual. Things must change.
Definitely things must change, so says the minister. What do you think? Now, South Africa may be forced to reduce the water supply in some areas as it battles its worst drought since 1992. Below average rainfall in the past few months has led to worsening drought conditions in the nation, where 2 of the 9 provinces have been declared disaster areas. As a result, the government may have to cut supply to consumers and to farmers. Now, to shed some light on this matter, we are joined in studio by our meteorologist, Tsitsi Munare. Tsitsi, a very good morning to you and welcome. Now, we've seen this happen, but what is the causes of this drought that we're currently experiencing?
Yeah, well, look, as you've seen in the weather predictions or the weather forecast that we've been given, over the last couple of months, we've been seeing less and less rainfall. In fact, over the last couple of years, we've been going towards the trend of drought, and farmers mostly complaining about the rainfall falling, dropping and so on. So there's a couple of issues at play here, but one of the most significant ones for this year is the El Nino effect that is sort of on the rise, and it is expected that this could be one of the most severe El Ninos that we've had since 1992 and 1997. Yeah, what's basically happening is that there's now hot air that's coming in towards the south of, or rather the western side of South America, towards Peru, and those Latin countries. And when that happens, it will lead to dry areas in places such as North America, as well as here in South Africa, which is what we're going through. And we've been experiencing these heat waves, it's really hot conditions you know, over the last couple of days, you know, we've all been struggling to sleep because of the hot weather at night, and temperatures are quite high when it's supposed to be very low. And at the same time, they're delaying the rainfall patterns here in South Africa. We are supposed to have had thousands of thunderstorms by now.
Yes.
But in fact, we have, you know, had very few. And we're only receiving rain towards the Eastern Cape province at the moment, like PE, where it's raining. And those are just about the only places where we've been receiving rain. But yes, the El Nino effect basically was leading to it. And then on a larger scale that, you know, we all jump into, or a lot of people just jump into it, is the effect of climate change. I mean, rainfall variability and patterns are changing significantly because of the way we've been living over the last couple of years.
I wonder if they can just maybe put up a picture for us in terms of the cloud forecast so people can actually see where the cloud forecast is and where you can expect rain. I wonder if that if they can just put it up for us. But it seems to be very dry. I mean, this past weekend, I've seen it where we stay, that there was an indication that it was going to rain, but it never came down. What happened there?
Yes, that's basically what's happening now, is that we have so much of the build-up. You know, you feel the warm air rising so quickly because it's quite hot, and that's basically the season for it to happen. And you have these big cumulonimbus clouds that are forming, and it looks like a thunderstorm is about to just burst and erupt at any moment. But then again, it becomes so hot at the same time, you know, that most of the moisture content just evaporates before it even hits the ground, and we lose out on a lot of rainfall from you know, certain phenomena like that. I've seen over the weekend, we were just talking just now offline, that you know, it rained in some areas for just less than a minute. And over the weather system, you'll see that there's rain only towards the eastern side of the country, southeastern regions. And that was only because of a low pressure system that came in, almost significant, similar to a cold front that just passed by. And that's basically what you're seeing there. That's leading to rainy conditions just along the southwestern parts. I just want to show you, this is a satellite image here indicating where most of the rain is and where it's coming to, and it's only along the tropics. Towards the southern tropics where we are, there's absolutely no rainfall. This is what's happening today, possibilities of snowfalls and all because of the cold front that's just passing by, amidst the really hot conditions that we went through. I mean, over the last, let's say about 40 days or so, we've reported so many veld fire dangers, which is associated with berg winds and really dry conditions that are leading to possibilities of veld fires and absolutely no rainfall at all.
But then some sort of relief there for KwaZulu-Natal, where we have currently that disaster area being declared there. So there's some rain at least there. Hey?
Yeah, for today and for tomorrow. But unfortunately, that's still not enough. And KwaZulu-Natal also one of the provinces that are declared under stress. And that's, if you look at South Africa, how it is, the east versus the west. The east gets a lot more rainfall than the west. And, you know, in a good year over the east, we can get close to 1,200 millimeters of rainfall. But now that has not happened. And that's the place, the pot of gold when it comes to rainfall, because of the Mozambican currents that bring warm air and bringing rain along those sides. But it's not happening now.
Now, Eben prodded you a little bit earlier on the question of water shedding. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, in fact, I would say we need to move forward to something like that. Not as much water shedding, but water restrictions on people must get a certain amount of water that they can use. Municipalities need to start managing and tracking this very, very well, because a lot of water is actually wasted in our household. You and me, normal people, you know, we could take baths just about twice a day before we go to gym or after we come from gym and on our way to work and so on. You know, we can. And that wastes so much water, brushing your teeth and just leaving the tap running, because we are so spoiled. We're used to water always being there. But if you put on some restrictions, if you say, just hypothetically, a person gets just around 25 liters a day, and once that's finished, then you will learn that, okay, I only need to boil a certain amount of water to make my coffee, and I can only wash dishes maybe just twice a day and not just wash every single dish that comes along. So those things will help us. And also doing your laundry as well. People will do laundry almost every single day instead of just doing it in bulks.
And once a week.
Yeah, and once a week, So those are some of the things that we can...
People are also talking about rainwater harvesting and using grey water for your toilet. So that means if you shower, you can harvest that water and reuse it for your bathrooms. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly some of the strategies that you need to do. Number one, that I always tell people, you do not need to water your paved driveway. I mean, just clean that with your broom. There's no need for you. But yes, whenever it rains, have buckets. You know, I grew up back home in the Platteland, in the middle of the Wolmaranstad, and whenever it rained, we had little buckets where we collected water, and we used that to, you know, water the lawn. and that basically worked. Our our water bills were always low, and it felt like you are recycling, you are reusing, some of the stuff that you do not have. So that's basically what we need to get into here in the rest of the.
So consumers should be conscientized about how to use your water sparingly. It's going to come sooner or later. Tsitsi Munari, thank you so much for joining us here in studio. That's our meteorologist Tsitsi Munari right here now. Let's move on to other stories. President Jacob Zuma says that he understands the students' plight of not having enough money to pay the university fees. Speaking in an interview with the SABC exclusively, the head of state addressed issues surrounding education problems in the country.
You have students from poor families. With time, I think this is becoming more of a challenge because the fees have been rising. And I've said this in the past publicly, that our education is really prohibitively expensive to poor, because if it keeps on going up and they can't even manage what they were doing from the beginning, that becomes a problem. The feeling of the students was that if it goes up next year, it means you are going to exclude a lot of students who are keen to study but who just not afford. There was an issue of solidarity, but also an issue of really challenging this to say we can't be deprived education. So it began to gain sympathy. I must say, I also said this in public, that I sympathize with the students.
That was the president. Anti-e-toll group OUTA has launched a new e-toll defensive umbrella campaign. That is to provide legal support to members summoned for non-payment of e-toll fees. The South African National Roads Agency, SANRAL, announced on Sunday that Gauteng road users are eligible for a 60% reduction of the historic e-toll arrears. Now, road users with outstanding e-toll debt incurred from the 3rd of December 2013 until the 31st of August 2015 now have 6 months to settle their accounts or to make payment arrangements. Joining us on the line is OUTA's spokesperson, Wayne Duvenage. Mr. Duvenage, a very good morning to you and welcome. Mr. Duvenage, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. I can hear you now. Now, firstly, your reaction to the 60% reduction of the historic e-toll debt incurred by motorists from the 3rd of December 2013 until this year, 31st of August.
Well, we say that this is a farce, and we've said it right from the beginning. The whole scheme is an actual farce. We don't believe that this is going to entice many people to come on board. Certainly, they'll get some people. But remember, if people were going to subscribe to e-tolling, they would have done so right in the beginning when the fees were are always at their lowest if you tag up. And people have ignored these 3 times, the 300% increase, these punitive tariffs over many years, over the last 2 years now. This debt has now increased. And then SANRAL and the government feel that if they offer a 60% discount, they're going to bring people back on board. We don't believe they'll get more than about pushing their compliance from about the current 25% to about 40% maximum, which is a failure in any user pay scheme.
Now, to you, is this perhaps a sign of desperation? And why are motorists only given 6 months to repay these bills?
Well, they're given some time. I mean, they certainly wouldn't even dare participate if they were asked to pay it off straight away. So they're offering this carrot in a payoff over a payoff period. But as we said, we don't believe they're going to fall for it. This is a desperate attempt, a last attempt, we believe, to coerce and try and cajole people to coming on board with the scheme. But it's lost the people. It's lost them a long time ago.
What will the consequences be for those who cannot afford to pay the historic debt, which can amount to thousands of rands for these cash-strapped consumers that we have in the country?
Well, we believe there's no consequences. You know, SANRAL have been threatening for the last 2 years to start summoning and enforcing this non-payment, but they haven't been able to do so. We believe that the scheme is unenforceable. And on that basis, we don't believe it's going to work.
Now, you have launched, as OUTA launched the new e-toll defensive umbrella campaign to provide legal support to members, a summons for non-payment of e-toll fees. Tell us more about that and how is it going to work?
Yes, so what we've got, we've got a history of challenging this matter in court. We've got all the arguments that fall outside of administrative law, where those technicalities that set our case aside will not come into play. And we've said now we will defend our members, our contributing members, if they are ever summoned for non-payment of e-tolls, or if they're summoned because they can't get their licenses renewed as a result of non-payment of e-tolls. And it's an online process at outa.co.za where people can go on and sign up for a monthly contribution at their own amount. It is not an insurance. It is not a guarantee. It is a matter of a crowd-funded approach in order to defend our members from non-payment of e-tolls.
So you will go to court on behalf of your members, who obviously have to sign up to fight their case?
Yes, contributing members to OUTA, we will fight their case. If they are summoned for non-payment of e-tolls, we will defend those cases for them.
Now, if you're saying contributing members, how do you break it down? What is that? Is that people that actually just pay in an amount to OUTA, or that become members of OUTA?
Yes. Yes, so they become members of OUTA. Contributing members is a membership number. They can select how much they want to pay. As I said, this is not an insurance. They decide what they want to pay and what they want to contribute. This is a crowdfunding campaign to finance legal matters where people are challenged for non-payment of e-tolls. We believe e-tolls has been introduced unlawfully. It is an irrational and unjust scheme, and it has to be defended.
Is there a minimum?
But we can only defend members. Sorry.
Is there a minimum or a maximum contribution that members can make?
There's never a maximum. You can give us as much as you like. If you go on board, we suggest down to 80 Rand a month. But you decide if you want to give more as well.
So, and it doesn't matter how much you owe. So, for instance, if you owe 1,000 Rand or you owe 30,000 Rand, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. The same principle applies. If you haven't paid your e-toll bills and you subscribe to OUTA's conditions, we are there to defend you.
So once you become a member, you automatically become eligible to be defended by OUTA?
If you are ever summoned, yes, for non-payment of e-tolls, absolutely.
How do people get on board now? So they go onto the website, and where do they go? What do they need to do? What do they need to do to become part and parcel of the campaign?
What for OUTA?
Yes, so for the campaign that you're currently using, you call it the e-toll defensive umbrella campaign.
Yeah, you just go online to outa.co.za. So www.outa.co.za. Click there where it says become a member and contribute, and it's very simple. Go through the process.
Why was this necessary, Mr. Duvenage?
Sorry,
why was this necessary to start this particular campaign for motorists?
Well, because we get a lot of inquiries. People are very concerned about what do I do. We've got these outstanding bills they don't want to pay. They believe it's an irrational scheme. And we've got the history of this case. We know exactly how to defend it. We have now built up our legal expertise. Our team is growing, and we've decided to launch this umbrella campaign in order to defend people and give them the courage, the moral courage to stand their ground against an unjust scheme. And we believe now the time is right to do so.
Now, if people do not have access to the internet and to go online, how can they still become part and parcel of the campaign? Is there a number that they can perhaps call?
Well, we put the whole campaign in the online space. We'll be looking at bringing in a call center operation on this shortly, but at the moment it's purely an online matter.
Mr. Duvenage, thank you so much for your time. That was OUTA spokesperson Wayne Duvenage joining us on the line, telling us about their e-toll defensive umbrella campaign, where you can become a member and they will defend your case against SANRAL if you have outstanding e-toll bills. Now, as you know, that you do have an extension now, and you also have a discount of 60% on your outstanding bills for the last 2 years. So it's up to you what you're going to do with that. Now, Gauteng police say the 24-year-old man arrested in connection with the double murder and rape at Rhodes Park, Johannesburg, will appear in court today. 2 men were walking with their partners in the park when 12 suspects attacked them just over 2 weeks ago. It's reported that the suspects tied up the men and threw them in a dam where they drowned. One woman was raped while the other managed to escape. Police spokesperson Lungelo Dlamini says the suspect faces 2 counts of murder, one of rape and another of attempted rape. He was taken in for questioning on Friday after police received information from sources. Now that's your news for now. Kendall Makamate is standing by with your sports news.
Thank you very much, Elvis, and good morning to you. I'm Kendall Makamate with your sports. Businessman Tokyo Sehwale faces a mountain in his bid to become president of World Football's governing body FIFA. He, however, is upbeat about his prospects. Speaking to SABC News earlier, this is what he had to say.
This is a contest that is taking place globally. It will affect, it's taking place in every country, 205 countries. So it's the largest thing in terms of elections that we can ever have.
Yeah.
And yeah, the candidates, these are good people that I know, these are all friends. People, some of whom I've been with in FIFA for the last 9.5 years. So I know some South Africans think, oh, suddenly, so he wants to be FIFA president? Yeah. Where does it come from? I've been FIFA in front of all of you.
Yeah, for a while.
For a decade. So this time around, it's not me who just announces myself again, but people approach you. I wouldn't have done it really had I not thought that there is a possibility. So some people approach, confederations, associations, individuals, people in business, sponsors, and other people in civil society. That's when I considered, I think I should try it.
Now, in a very next story, we go back to the Rugby World Cup, where New Zealand walked away with the most prestigious awards at last night's World Rugby Awards ceremony in London. The All Blacks scooped the Team of the Year award, while fly half Dan Carter was named Player of the Year.
Dan Carter completed a memorable weekend with his 3rd Player of the Year award. Carter and the All Blacks captain Richie McCaw are the only 3-time winners of the award since its inception in 2001. The 33-year-old will retire from international rugby, having scored 1,598 points in 112 appearances.
It's been a fairy tale finish, an absolute dream come true this last 24 hours. I never expected this. I was just happy to be a part of this World Cup winning side, but to win back-to-back World Cups and so I guess have the finish on what's been an amazing career.
The All Blacks, who won their 3rd Rugby World Cup title on Saturday, the only side to have done so 3 times, were named Team of the Year for the 6th time in a row.
It was a weird feeling. It was a real sense of pride and satisfaction that we'd achieved what we set out to do 4 years ago.
After his impressive turnaround of the Wallabies over the past 12 months, Michael Cheika received the Coach of the Year award.
I've had a really great time with the team over the last the year I've been in, and it's been a great journey for me. I've learnt a lot, and it's true, it's not the one we wanted, so it's a bit bittersweet, I suppose.
Werner Kok of South Africa was voted 7th Player of the Year. The winners were selected by an independent panel of judges led by Australia's 1999 World Cup winning captain John Eales. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
And it was not a good day for South African runners in the Old Mutual Soweto Marathon yesterday. For the first time, all 3 distances, the 42.2, the 21.1 and the 10-kilometer races, took runners through the heart of Soweto. Over 19,000 runners took part in the historic race.
The race started and finished at the Expo Center in Johannesburg, connecting runners from all over the world to 6 significant heritage sites along the 42.2-kilometer marathon route. This includes the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, Walter Sisulu Square, Regina Mundi Church, Maurice Isaacson High School, Vilakazi Street, and Hector Peterson Memorial. The men's race was won by defending champion Sintahew Legese Yunesu from Ethiopia. He crossed the finish line in a time of 2 hours, 23 minutes, and 20 seconds. Zimbabwean athlete Mike Fokoroni took 2nd place, followed by John Kirui from Kenya. In the women's section, Kenyan Harriet Chebore won the race. The 2nd place went to Fikaro Bosho, and in 3rd place was Ebere Alebacheu from Ethiopia. Yunesu and Chebore, the 2 marathon winners, Each take home 200,000 rand in prize money. Meanwhile, the Kenyans were dominant in the New York Marathon. Stanley Biot and compatriot Jeffrey Kamoror finished first and second respectively, with Ethiopian Lelisa Desisa finishing third. Mary Keitani of Kenya won the women's race. This was the 33-year-old second win in a row. Aselefech Meja of Ethiopia was second, and her compatriot Maswed Tusha finished third. Sfeso Ramara, SABC News.
Now, before I let you go, here's a quick summary of all the results from the PSL action over the weekend. Quite a few derbies being played, but let's start with Friday night, where Chipa United beat Black Aces 2-1. You remember Black Aces and Platinum Stars had been topping the log up until then. Then on Saturday, 31st of October, Jomo Cosmos get a win in the PSL, beating Polokwane City 1-0. Then Sundowns 3-0 against Maritzburg United. You'll see what that win has done for Sundowns in terms of log standings. Bidvest Wits 0-0 against Bloem Celtic. Kaizer Chiefs, a surprise for a lot of people, 3-1 get beaten by Pirates at the FNB Stadium. Big loss, that one. And then on Sunday, University of Pretoria, 2-0 they lose to Platinum Stars at Tuks, and Free State Stars a 0-0 draw against Supersport United. Now to the all-important logs, going through to see exactly what's happening with the log standings. We'll start through with the very first top 8. Platinum Stars are top in the log. Sundowns, as you can see, have moved into second position on 17 points, and then followed by Wits, Black Aces and Bloem Celtic. Kaizer Chiefs on 6th. They've slipped 2 positions to 6th position. Golden Arrows, Chipa United bring up the rest of the top 8. We'll go through to the second half of the log, where you'll see right at the bottom, starting there, we've got Tuks and Maritzburg United in the relegation zone. And then at the top, we've got 9, Ajax Cape Town, Free State Stars, Supersport United, Orlando Pirates, and the big one is Jomo Cosmos, moving up to 13th position with 7 points after 8 matches. Now we'll go through to tomorrow's fixtures on the 3rd of the month. That's tomorrow. You see exactly what's happening with the fixtures that are being played tomorrow. If that doesn't come up now, we'll make sure we'll bring it up for you in the next bulletin. There it is. Kaizer Chiefs, Golden Arrows at 7:30 p.m. All matches kicking off at 7:30 p.m. as Black Aces, Cosmos, Maritzburg United, Polokwane City. And that's where we leave it with this sports bulletin. We'll be back with more in the next bulletin. Now to take a quick break, and then Eben standing by.
We make sure to bring you exciting entertainment news on Trends. Ayanda, a vibrant South African movie told with love, passion and exceptional acting.
For Ayanda, at least, it says that we are heading in the right direction. South African films are growing and they are heading in the right direction to become international movies.
The Urban Art Festival artists brought back colour to old buildings of Johannesburg with their spray cans.
Festival to promote graffiti in Johannesburg and also to promote the Johannesburg inner city. But it brings a number of international artists out, and then they paint with our local artists, and they paint throughout the inner city.
We even give you tips on making healthy and fruity cocktails.
Low carbs, fun cocktails for the summer.
Join Refulo Muilwa every Friday for that 1-hour weekly dose of art and entertainment news at 9 p.m. on Trends.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Time now for us to shift our focus as to what's happening in and around the African continent. Here are the stories in the news. The bodies of more than 160 people killed in a plane crash in Egypt have been flown home to the Russian city of St. Petersburg. Experts investigating the Egyptian air crash say the Russian plane disintegrated in the air, but it's still too early to draw final conclusions. South Sudan's rebels have released 13 United Nations contractors who were held captive for almost a week. This comes after the first release of UN staff last week. The contractors were part of a convoy of 3 barges carrying 14,000 gallons of fuel along the Nile River to a UN base in the war-torn Upper Nile state. This region was detained by the rebels last Monday. 14 aid workers have been kidnapped in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 12 researchers and 2 drivers were returning from a project on the nutritional situation in the Rutshuru when they were kidnapped in the town of Katwiguru. The identity of the assailants are not yet known. And in Morocco, thousands of people took to the streets in protest in the country's northern city of Tangier. The crowds were protesting against high water and electricity rates. The protest was considered the nation's largest protest since pro-democracy marches in 2011 that demanded political transformation there. Now, the bodies of more than 160 people killed in a plane crash in Egypt have now been flown home to the Russian city of St. Petersburg. Russian investigators say the plane had disintegrated at high altitude, but it's too early to draw any real conclusions. 2 buses were seen leaving the site accompanied by a police escort. Shortly afterwards, 2 large trucks believed to be carrying bodies also left the airport, flanked by police vehicles. The Russian jet, which Kogalmiavia airline flew under the brand Metrojet, was carrying holidaymakers from the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg when it crashed into a mountainous area of central Sinai late on Saturday. During the crash, all 224 people on board were killed instantly. Those on board the doomed flight included 214 Russians, 3 Ukrainians and 1 Belarusian, most returning from the Red Sea resort, popular with Russians seeking winter sun. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said it could take months to establish the truth behind the crash, though his country was cooperating with Russia to aid investigations. Authorities in the Somalian capital Mogadishu say an al-Shabaab militant was killed during yesterday's attack on a hotel. Reports say gunmen used 2 car bombs to blast their way into the Sahafi Hotel compound before storming the building there. The death toll from the attack now stands at 15. The victims included the hotel owner and a Somali general who commanded the operation against al-Shabaab in 2011. African Union soldiers battling alongside government troops say they've taken control of the building now. Hours after the attack, Somali special forces could still be seen carrying out mop-up operations. The Sahafi Hotel is popular with members of parliament, government employees and businessmen. Now, tensions are still running high in Tanzania's semi-autonomous Zanzibar island. This after the Electoral Commission annulled last weekend's polls over irregularities there. Today, 2 bombs went off minutes apart on the island after a disputed election. Police say no one was hurt in the blast in Stone Town, the island's main city. Tanzania held elections last week Sunday. They concluded the vote for the local administration in Zanzibar as well, but the island's election commission annulled the presidential vote, citing violations during the process. The last batch of Ugandan forces has left South Sudan, marking the end to Kampala's almost 2-year intervention in the country. The Ugandan flags were lowered, marking the end of Uganda's intervention in South Sudan. Kampala sent 2,500 troops to South Sudan at the beginning of fighting between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and his former deputy Riek Machar in December of 2013. Thousands have been killed and 3.6 million people have been displaced, with the country now facing famine. Now we move on. Children fleeing deadly conflicts in Sudan and South Sudan are sharing one singular pursuit, this catching mudfish to pay for their schooling. Now, this is a picture story, and Yida is a town surrounded by wetlands in a remote part of South Sudan. It's only 12 kilometers from the border. The area has become a home for nearly 70,000 refugees escaping conflict. Many of these people are children who were forced to put their schooling on hold. But despite their difficult circumstances and little money, education remains very important. Lovely pictures coming out of South Sudan, children catching fish to feed their families, but also to pay for their schooling. Let's now take a look at what are the news from around the continent. What are some of the newspapers saying? Let's have a look. We'll start in Swaziland today. The Swaziland Observer says the ongoing restructuring process gives Swazi TV Chief Executive Officer Bongani Austin Dlamini sleepless nights, as some of those who were affected by reportedly baying for his blood. Then we move to Namibia. The Namibian reports that the Auditor General has found that the Namibian Education Ministry broke financial laws by overspending with more than 2 billion Namibian dollars during the 2013-14 financial year. Further north, in Angola, the Jornal de Angola reports that the National Society of Angola Fuels and its counterpart in the French capital, Total, announced in Luanda the launch of the Project Pumps multi-phase at Camp Rose in Block 17 offshore, which will add thousands of barrels of oil a day to domestic production. Well, those are some of the stories coming out of the African continent. Time now for us to get a quick weather update with Tsietse Monare.
All right, welcome from the weather desk. Let's have a look at this weather, and we'll look at this satellite image. Very interesting to see here. I wanted to show you. Just have a look at this tropical cyclone here closer towards the UAE. It is expected to bring some heavy rain towards very dry areas. Otherwise, in general, over the central parts, over the Congos and much of the tropical areas, it is expected to be quite rainy and humid, and possibilities of good showers are coming in over those central parts. And it is going to continue so maybe for the next couple of days or so, depending on how severe those moisture and weather systems remain over the central regions. Now, for Southern Africa, this is what we mentioned earlier on, possibility of snowfalls and also heavy rainfall towards the southeastern part of the country. But as you move towards the northwestern part, it's dry and clear, no chance of rain for the next couple of days. The cold front has now moved out completely, leaving cooler conditions behind it. What you also need to look out for is possibilities of gale force winds, and with that, high seas that are expected there. So I know some adrenaline junkies might be going out there for a surf, but please do be careful. We're expecting swells as high as around 6 to 7 meters, so that's quite high. For tomorrow, even again, clear conditions and dry weather for much of the west, but rainy conditions for the east, as we're seeing a low pressure cell all the way into the Mozambican Channel, bringing good rains towards Madagascar, which is very good, and it's exactly what we need. Sunny skies are expected for today over the interior, temperatures into the lower 20s. So the good news is that most of the heat waves are now gone. Temperatures are looking much better, except if you're in Musina, though. Musina temperatures there are still very high at 41 degrees. But towards the southwestern regions, you see some teens. Look at Graaff-Reinet at 13, possibilities of snow expected there. 17 for Beaufort West as well as George, going towards Cape Agulhas. Cape Town, 18 degrees. Yeah, so cooler conditions for now. We can maybe get a bit of a breather in terms of the hot weather that we've been going through. Namibia, 26 for Keetmanshoop. Remember, this has dropped by almost 10 degrees. So hot weather also alleviated along the southern part of Namibia. Chirongo still hot. 34, 35 for Oshakati. So those northwestern regions are still very, very hot. Look at Botswana as well. Most parts of the Kalahari into the upper 30s. Maun, 36 degrees. Francistown at 39. And then possibilities of showers for some parts of Zimbabwe. Kariba still very hot at 40 degrees. Nothing changes much, except for Tete increasing to 44. Chimoyo as well as Quelimane, those joining the pack in the 40s. So hot weather is expected along those parts. Maputo is at 30 degrees. Just have a look at Madagascar. This is where the good news is now. Rainfall is expected right across the southern parts, moving towards the north. Even places such as Majanga also now expecting rain. So there's a good chance, up to 60% chance of rain is expected. Now, for holiday makers, here are the islands. Comoros, 31 degrees. An average of just around 30 is expected towards the Seychelles. And Mauritius is slightly hotter at 33 degrees. That's it for your weather. Stay tuned. There will be more here on SABC News.
Yeah, I spoke to Tsietsi Munare a little bit earlier, and he says the weather outlook, well, the rain outlook, even for the next 2 months in the northern parts of southern Africa, is not looking too good. And our question of the day is, how is the water crisis affecting you? Now, measures are being put in place. Our Water and Sanitation Minister, Nomvula Mokonyane, says the way in which water is used will be crucial in dealing with the current drought conditions. She was addressing a media conference about the nationwide water crisis in Glen Vista, south of Johannesburg. A number of provinces have been declared disaster areas due to the drought here in South Africa. Rand Water has said its water supply is under severe strain. We first asked her how far we are from water restrictions.
Already we have a number of municipalities that are now introducing water restrictions. Rand Water had to do this because of the extent of the evaporation of water because of the heat wave that was in Tshwane and in the areas of Johannesburg. Over years, South Africa never applied water demand management, and application of restrictions is, amongst others, that kind of a situation. You need to divert and store and make sure that you redistribute, and therefore you can't have a forever supply that does not actually provide an opportunity for maintenance, an opportunity for refill, but an opportunity for everybody to appreciate that this is a scarce resource that has to be utilized properly. Municipalities also have to enforce bylaws. I was just sharing with you now that in California, the city of Beverly Hills has actually been fined an amount of $61 million for failure to enforce bylaws. Here in South Africa, we have just cited the city of Mfuleni for failure to maintain their water treatment plants, where sewer is now spilling into the Vaal River system. The municipal manager has been cited because we can't afford a situation where conditional grants are given to municipalities. Municipalities are expected to do maintenance for every infrastructure they have, and they fail to do that. We are reviewing our laws, but we must also deal with behavioral change. Restrictions help to replenish.
Yeah. How are our water levels looking? I mean, where are we at right now?
We're not where we're supposed to be in terms of the dams, because dams are running almost dry. And we also have some of the dams that do have sufficient water, but they are located in areas where they are not needed. And hence, we are now putting a lot in terms of the construction of water storage facilities, huge tanks that would have to move to areas that are supplied, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal by Hazelmere. You rather have storage capacity that can then be used to distribute for both eThekwini and iLembe. We are also intervening in terms of incapacity as part of Back to Basics. We have actually, together with the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal, taken over Umkhanyakude municipality in KwaZulu-Natal so that then we make interventions. As I was coming to the studio, we're discussing with the Premier of the Northwest on the interventions we must do in the Northwest, in Ngakamudiri, but also in many other places. We have been given a go-ahead to go into those areas, but you have municipalities that resist change. And hence what President Zuma said in the National General Council of the ANC to say, let's review this thing of saying every municipality in South Africa can be a water service authority when they don't have a technical capacity, indeed, when they can't even produce a water master plan, and when they can't also generate revenue. And hence also through the demarcations board, we're looking at the capacity of local government and their viability. Yeah. But we also are looking at how you and me behave. How tonight, me and you are going to remove this makeup. Do we have to run a full tap, or do you have to work and ensure that you can afford a wet wipe? And do you have to use a full basin and running water to brush your teeth? Do you have to use a shower as a studio? Get in and get out. Yeah. Stop irrigating, and there must be penalties. Enforcement has to be applied. The other thing, we're moving away from the dependent on surface water. We'll explore groundwater. We've got sufficient groundwater. We're looking at desalination, cleaning of ocean water so that it can be used differently. We're also dealing with the issues of construction with the construction industry and the relevant departments, so that then we move away from also construction that is highly dependent on the use of water. In the environment of this heat, you have to mix cement and sand and build. You can find other means to build a wall. So it's those it can be business as usual. South Africa has been too comfortable in not managing our water services properly, and yet we are a water scarce country. We rely on water basins that we share with other countries, and hence we need peace and stability in Zimbabwe, we need peace and stability in Lesotho, we need cooperation with Mozambique and Swaziland, so that then we can draw water from Zambezi through Zimbabwe. We can extend the work we're doing not only for Gauteng, but for KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State through the Lesotho. So all of us must appreciate that this is a global issue. It needs to start with me and you, but it also has to be a thing that we appreciate. It can be business as usual. Things must change.
That brings us to the question of the day that I ask you. Water shedding might be in our quite immediate future if we don't change the way we use water. Now, our question today is, how is the water crisis affecting you? Throughout the whole of the northern parts of southern Africa, heat waves continues. It's now almost a month that it's been going on, and the outlook for the next couple of months is not so good. But we move on. Send us your tweets there. We'd love to interact with you a little bit later. Now, the second video of that alleged police brutality in Krugersdorp has been shared by the Intelligence Bureau of South Africa on their Facebook page. Now, we've seen that the Sunday Times video where a police officer shoots and kills a suspect, but this is a video of what seems to have happened before that took place. Now, we're going to play the video. Anini's here with me to run us through the scenarios. Watch carefully and then tell us, what do you watch a suspect fire into a police vehicle. This is what sets off all of it that kind of follows afterwards. Just tell us what's happening here, Anine.
Well, even here you can see with that robbery tip-off that the police did receive, this is what happens moments before we actually saw the other video that's going viral of the police shooting the suspect. You'll see the police car approaches, and then we have the suspect shooting through the police van, and then he runs away, and that's where that whole other part. Here the police car comes now. There we go. Now the suspect is shooting. You can see over there the kind of dust clouds, how the police car is struggling. He runs away. This is where the police come out. They follow him down to that other house where we see the other shooting from the police officer take place. All right, and that is the video, of course, that's gone viral that everyone is seeing. And this is the hysteria, in a way, that was caused on all these all those feeds over the last day or so. So it was in the whole video, and it's a little bit mischievous to not put the whole thing in context, is what you say. Given, yes, I did speak to the Intelligence Bureau just a bit earlier. I asked them permission if we could use this video to show what happened before the suspect actually got shot. And the Intelligence Bureau does believe that the story is being a bit manipulated. Because they do feel, although, that last shot from the police officer, that was a wrong move from him, but they do also feel that the police officer could have been traumatized taking those shots through the police car that we saw earlier in the video, in the piece of the video that wasn't actually shared. So I think this needs more investigation, Eben, and we'll see how the story develops. Hopefully we do have a reporter that's on the story a bit later today that will come out with a bit more detail.
Yeah, somebody has been dispatched now. We also know that the Parliament Portfolio Committee on Police wants an explanation from the police watchdog IPID on this. The CCTV footage went viral, of course, after being published by a weekend newspaper. I can tell you that, well, no arrests have been made. IPID is also expected to make an announcement a little bit later. The brother of the deceased says the case was opened. They haven't heard from the IPID. Time for us to take a short break. Newsroom will be back, well, at the top of the hour with a complete wrap. See you then.
South Africa is renowned for producing artists of the highest caliber who are inspired by our country and all its diversity.
The work you see behind me is a work by Isaac Kanyele. He's a Durban-based artist who won the Absa Atelier in 1996. He's currently, besides a practicing artist, a lecturer at Durban University of Technology. Now, what makes Isaac's work so unique is that he is working very much more with traditional items. So if you look at the work that you see behind me, he's working with beadwork, he's working with ceramics, items that we often associate very much more within craft and not within contemporary artworks. So he's taken these traditional works and he's brought them into a contemporary space. Now, the particular work behind me is Ampande, which means the roots. It's basically chapters, but chapters of a book that he's now put into a visual representation. This particular work forms part of a larger series of chapters where behind we've got only 3 sets of the chapters. He's looking at one himself, looking at his identity, but also looking at things from a cultural significance, historical significance within South Africa. So the first chapter, if we look at that particular work, deals with his culture as a Zulu male. The second looks at more from a historic perspective as an African person within South Africa. And the third one deals very much more with the political journey during apartheid until our democracy 21 years back. The works, the color, he's been very much more consistent in using. You'll see the repetition of color through the works. The color is not really symbolic from a political perspective or anything like that. But if we really think of African culture, we think of craft, it is often associated with bright colors that come through, particularly if we also think of the Ndebele and so on. So what he's done, he's brought a lot of that cultural significance and those bright colors into his work as well. The second work by Isaac on this particular exhibition, where we're looking back over the 30 years of the Absa Atelier art competition, is this one that is loosely translated as Zulu culture. But what it really is, it symbolizes, as we can see, from a Zulu kraal, the entrance therein, with the back part being the entrance into the actual Zulu hut. Again, he's brought in very much more traditional media, where the previous work was very much more ceramic and beadwork. This is bringing very much more grass and the weaving of grass. Also, again, what is associated with more craft work. The mat at the bottom is again the straw mat with beaded work on it, and then as there are ceramic buttons and that on the actual archway. So he's now again brought what we can term as craft items and materials into contemporary reading and contemporary artwork.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your signs? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here, because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to him? Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
It's 1000 hours, in fact, it's almost 1100 hours. Central Africa time, the 2nd of November 2015. Jumbo Africa, if you've just joined us, and a very warm welcome to the final hour. This is Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preston, I'll be with you until 12. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. But first, let's take a look at all your headlines. Water and Sanitation Minister Nomvula Mokonyane says the way in which water is used will be crucial in dealing with the current drought conditions. President Jacob Zuma has told the SABC News that he understands the students' plight of not having enough money to pay for their university fees. And Gauteng police say the 24-year-old man arrested in connection with the double murder and rape at Rhodes Park, Johannesburg, will appear in court today. Now, those are all your headlines, but first let's find out from Kendall what's in store. Sports news.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you very much. Quite a bit. In fact, let me just get right to it. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. Tokyo Sehwale speaks to the SABC on his bid to replace Sepp Blatter as the president of FIFA.
Toying with Mato.
Orlando Pirates strike first in the battle for bragging rights as they beat Kaizer Chiefs 3-1 in the Soweto Derby. And New Zealand make history, becoming the first team to win the Rugby World Cup 3 times.
And it's history. Confirmed.
This as Roger Federer beats old rival Rafael Nadal for the first time in over 3 years to win a 7th Basel title. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got for everybody in the sports.
Well, that's all coming up with Ken a little later, but right now, let's take a look at your top story this hour. Water and Sanitation Minister Nomvula Mokonyane says the way in which water is used will be crucial in dealing with the current drought conditions. She was addressing a media conference about the nationwide water crisis in Glen Vista, south of Johannesburg. A number of provinces have been declared disaster areas due to the drought. Rand Water has said its water supply was under severe strain. We first ask her how far we are from water restrictions.
Already we have a number of municipalities that are now introducing water restrictions. Rand Water had to do this because of the extent of the evaporation of water because of the heat wave that was in Tshwane and in the areas of Johannesburg. Over years, South Africa never applied water demand management, and application of restrictions is, amongst others, that kind of a situation. You need to divert and store and make sure that you redistribute, and therefore you can't have a forever supply that does not actually provide an opportunity for maintenance, an opportunity for refill, but an opportunity for everybody to appreciate that this is a scarce resource that has to be utilized properly. Municipalities also have to enforce bylaws. I was just sharing with you now that in California, the city of Beverly Hills has actually been fined an amount of $61 million for failure to enforce bylaws. Here in South Africa, we have just cited the city of Mfuleni for failure to maintain their water treatment plants, where sewer is now spilling into the Vaal River system. The municipal manager has been cited because we can't afford a situation where conditional grants are given to municipalities. Municipalities are expected to do maintenance for every infrastructure they have, and they fail to do that. We're reviewing our laws, but we must also deal with behavioral change. Restrictions help to replenish.
Yeah. How are our water levels looking? I mean, where are we at right now?
we're not where we're supposed to be in terms of the dams, because dams are running almost dry. And we also have some of the dams that do have sufficient water, but they are located in areas where they are not needed. And hence we are now putting a lot in terms of the construction of water storage facilities, huge tanks that would have to move to areas that are supplied, for example, in KwaZulu-Natal by Hazelmere. You rather have storage capacity that can then be used to distribute for both eThekwini and iLembe. We are also intervening in terms of incapacity as part of Back to Basics. We have actually, together with the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal, taken over Umkhanyakude municipality in KwaZulu-Natal so that then we make interventions. As I was coming to the studio, we're discussing with the Premier of the Northwest on the interventions we must do in the Northwest, in Ngakamudiri, but also in many other places. We have been given a go-ahead to go into those areas, but you have municipalities that resist change. And hence what President Zuma said in the National General Council of the ANC to say, let's review this thing of saying every municipality in South Africa can be a water service authority when they don't have a technical capacity, indeed, when they can't even produce a water master plan, and when they can't also generate revenue. And hence also through the demarcations board, we're looking at the capacity of local government and their viability. But we also are looking at how you and me behave. How tonight, me and you are going to remove this makeup. Do we have to run a full tap, or do you have to work and ensure that you can afford a wet wipe? And do you have to use a full basin and running water to brush your teeth? Do you have to use a shower as a studio? Get in and get out. Stop irrigating, and there must be penalties. Enforcement has to be applied. The other thing, we're moving away from the dependent on surface water. We'll explore groundwater. We've got sufficient groundwater. We're looking at desalination, cleaning of ocean water so that it can be used differently. We're also dealing with the issues of construction with the construction industry and the relevant departments, so that then we move away from also construction that is highly dependent on the use of water. In the environment of this heat, you have to mix cement and sand and build. You can find other means to build a wall. So it's those it can be business as usual. South Africa has been too comfortable in not managing our water services properly, and yet we are a water scarce country. We rely on water basins that we share with other countries, and hence we need peace and stability in Zimbabwe, we need peace and stability in Lesotho, we need cooperation with Mozambique and Swaziland, so that then we can draw water from Zambezi through Zimbabwe. We can extend the work we're doing not only for Gauteng, but for KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State through the Lesotho. So all of us must appreciate that this is a global issue. It needs to start with me and you, but it also has to be a thing that we appreciate. It can be business as usual. Things must change.
Things must change, and so says the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Mvula Makanyane. And of course, we're asking you a question with regards to that. How has the water crisis affected you? That's the question that we pose to you. You can let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter page. Let's see if there's one or two comments that we do have for you that we can read from. This one from Jude Rowe says, to the hygienic ones, bath once a day. Thank you. Hashtag save water. This one from Shinaz Jamal says, we are in for tough times. Sigh. Hashtag save water. So what are you doing differently? This one from Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry says the minister should first look at mining and industry operating without water licenses. Domestic is only 10% compared to the industry's 30%. Hashtag save water, says Dirty Harry. And this one from Adam says the RT government and ZA remember to fix a leaking toilet, otherwise it can waste up to 100,000 litres of water in just 1 year, says Adam. Now these are the things that is, or the comments that's coming in, but what are you doing differently as a consumer to make sure that you save your water? Are you, for instance, taking a cup and brushing your teeth instead of letting the water run? What are you doing? Are you not showering together, perhaps? Hey, that can make a difference. Let's move on. President Jacob Zuma says that he understands the students' plight of not having enough money to pay their university fees. Speaking in an interview with the SABC, the head of state addressed issues surrounding education problems in the country.
You have students from poor families. With time, I think this is becoming more of a challenge because the fees have been rising. And I've said this in the past publicly, that our education is really prohibitively expensive to poor, because if it keeps on going up and they can't even manage what they were doing from the beginning, that becomes a problem. The feeling of the students was that if it goes up next year, it means you are going to exclude a lot of students who are keen to study but who just not afford. There was an issue of solidarity, but also an issue of really challenging this to say we can't be deprived education. So it began to gain sympathy. I must say, I also said this in public, that I sympathize with the students.
That is the President, Jacob Zuma. Now, the start of exams for Wits University students has been postponed by a week to the 9th of this month. The agreement between the students and management was reached during yesterday's meeting in Johannesburg. The university will also end outsourcing of work following the recent protests by workers together with the students.
Wits University students and workers celebrate another victory. They have put an end to the outsourcing of jobs. The concession, it's hoped, will sweeten the deal for the classes to resume. Protest under the fees must fall banner shut down campuses for weeks.
So our governance structures, especially Council on Insourcing, considered this matter and said, in principle, we must insource. And then we must work out how we insource to ensure there is sustainability.
The university has to work out the scales at which those people are employed. Now that's what the task team that we agreed upon is going to thresh out.
Workers have been on strike and protesting alongside students. Their condition of employment were highlighted during the current wave of student protests.
I don't even have the words. I don't believe. I feel like I'm in a dream. I'm still going to wake up, but I'm ecstatic.
I'm happy and excited. I've been working here for years, and now this.
The negotiations around students and worker demands will continue. The breakthrough on outsourcing and concession on final year student debt should help to change the tone of the talks. SABC News, Johannesburg.
Gauteng police say the 24-year-old man arrested in connection with a double murder and rape at Rhodes Park, Johannesburg, will appear in court today. Two men were walking with their partners in the park when 12 suspects attacked them just over 2 weeks ago. It is reported that the suspects tied up the men and threw them in a dam where they drowned. One woman was raped while the other managed to escape. Police spokesperson Lungelo Dlamini says the suspects faces 2 counts of murder, one of rape and another of attempted rape. He was taken in for questioning on Friday after police received information from sources. Now, the second video of the alleged police brutality in Krugersdorp has been shared by the Intelligence Bureau of South Africa on their Facebook page. Now, we've seen the Sunday Times yesterday, the video where a police officer shoots and kills the suspect, but this is a video of what seems to have happened before that took place. Now watch carefully. And you can see the suspect fire through the police car. We've spoken to the Intelligence Bureau and they say that the last shot was wrong, but the officers could have been traumatized. The Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police wants an explanation from the police watchdog IPED. The CCTV footage went viral after being published by a weekend newspaper. No arrests have yet been made. IPED is expected to make an announcement today. The brother of the deceased says the case was opened and they haven't heard from IPED. Now, for more on the story, we joined on the line by our reporter Sibongile Makani Mpolweni. Sibongile, a very good morning to you, and can you tell us why you're in Krugersdorp?
Good morning. We are in Krugersdorp because the IPED is here to arrest the police officers that were involved in that video that has gone viral. What is happening right now, we've just been addressed by IPID because we're not allowed to go inside the police station to film. We understand that the 4 officers, 3 males and 1 female, were on rest duty because they had worked, so they were off. But management of the police station, together with IPID, called them to the station, so they drove themselves to the police station, and they are at the cells right now where they are currently being charged with the murder.
Mm-hmm. So how many police officers are involved?
It's 4 police officers, 3 are males and 1 is a female.
Mm-hmm. What are the families of those involved say? Have you spoken to them?
The family, the brother of the deceased, when we spoke to him yesterday, he said that he's lost hope because the case was opened and he didn't hear anything from the iPad. He doesn't know. And this morning when I informed him that the officers would be arrested, he was happy that they would finally be arrested. But we haven't spoken to him now that the arrest has taken place. We will talk to him later on in the day.
And you haven't had a chance to speak to the police officers at all that's being arrested this morning?
No, we haven't had a chance. They came in earlier in the morning to the police station. Remember, they also work here. So they came in earlier, and now they are at the holding cells where they are being processed and actually being charged with murder, their fingerprints taken. After this, they will be driven to their homes to verify their addresses. They might be going to court today, but IPID says they still have that 48 hours period to take them to court, so they might be appearing to court in court tomorrow.
What charges are they facing?
IPID is saying that at the moment they are charging them with murder, all 4 of them. Although we know, we've seen that in the video, there's 1 who finishes them off, but they are saying that the other 4, there might be other charges added, seeing charges like defeating the ends of justice, because after the incident, we all know that the incident happened on the 19th of October, and these officers did not report the incident, they just kept quiet, but it was only their police station, the head of the police station who took the video, which was handed over by a businessman at the station, took it to the iPad to report the matter.
Sibongile, you'll keep us updated as that story unfolds. That's our reporter, Sibongile Makani Mpolweni, giving us the latest on that story that broke yesterday with that video of the police shooting a suspect. But right now, let's take a break and we'll be right back after that.
Your destiny is not determined by the township you come from.
The one place we will find movers and shakers is in the township. It's just that they're diamonds in the rough and some of them don't even know it.
Being young with no experience in business is a challenge that Bulelani took upon himself.
I was motivated by the prayer. I was motivated by the love.
To be a novice in business was tough, but experience made him a businessman of note.
It took me 7 years to make my first million. I've got all the scars to prove that I started with nothing.
A journey well traveled.
For me, that is the one major thing. The ability to touch other people's lives. Nothing goes beyond that.
Join your host Puleng Mulebati on Bopilong every Saturday at 5:30 p.m.
Hello once again. Time for us to now shift our focus to around the country, sort of regional look, what's been happening in and around South Africa. Now with just less than 2 months to go to the South Africa United Kingdom Seasons project currently underway in the United Kingdom is changing lives and exposing emerging artists to international audiences. Now under the banner of the Department of Arts and Culture, the Seasons project kicked off in January of 2014 with a bang at the Edinburgh International Festival. It has been going strong ever since. The first Seasons project in 2013-12 was a cultural collaboration with France. The concept is proving to be so successful, organisers are now looking to expand its footprint even further. Now, our reporter down in Port Elizabeth, Janine Lee, she's been in London following the Seasons project. Very good morning to you, Janine.
Thanks, Eben. And I should say nice to be back, but I would rather be in London, but I suppose all good things have to come to an end.
I thought you guys planned it to coincide with the World Cup semi-final. That's what I thought. That's a sneaky suspicion I had, Janine. But quickly, tell us about this wonderful experience that you had, but also this wonderful project.
Yeah, but it's a great project, and as you said, it's funded by the Department of Arts and Culture, and what they do is they put in 18 million rand. Then stakeholders in whatever the chosen country is, this case it was the UK, so 18 million rand from the Department of Arts and Culture, and then stakeholders in the UK, those are theatres and like-minded places involved in the arts, they put in another 300 million rand. So you can understand how big this footprint actually becomes. And 450 artists from South Africa were part of the project, the UK SA Seasons project, and they came from 6 provinces in South Africa. And there was, if I have to split it, I think there was 62% men and 38% women who benefited. But the most important thing, Eben, is that they were exposed to audiences, international audiences, of over 500,000 people. That's 500,000 people who actually saw these young men and women from South Africa on various stages in the UK. And just to give you an example, what you see behind me is Somerset House in London. And this was home to the African Art Exhibition. And what Talent Scouts did, they found young artists with talent in townships in and around South Africa. Let me just give you Khayelitsha in Cape Town as an example. And they took some of these young women who were doing beading, and these women were doing bracelets and necklaces. But what they did, they taught them how to bead on board. And some of these artworks in Somerset House behind me, they're hanging there for all to see. And they were being sold for something like 200,000 rand. So you can just imagine the exposure that people who would never have had this opportunity before are now having with their work commanding such prices.
Janine, obviously lots of successes, but tell us about some of the success stories that's come out of your trip, but also the artists. What have they been telling you?
You know, Eben, let me just say, before I even left for the UK, somebody told me that there were 2 young girls here at the Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan University here in Port Elizabeth, 2 musical students, one a classical violinist and one a classical pianist. They were part of the beginning of this trip in Edinburgh. And they were taken over there. They were chosen from, I think, thousands and thousands of young artists. They were a part of a group of 12. And they were taken to Edinburgh, and they were exposed to such things, not only playing a violin or playing a piano, in their line of, or their field of work where their interests lie. So it exposed them to different things, whereas maybe not just playing or being part of an orchestra. It showed them if this is the line of work they actually want to follow, that they can perhaps organize festivals. They were taught how to get people together, and it's not only what they can do and what they're exposed to, but it shows, it gives them a much greater insight into their field of expertise that they want to study and follow in life. But if I must say, Eben, if I look at the Truth and Reconciliation process that was here in South Africa, the UBU and the Truth Commission were one of the theatre productions that were on show in London as part of the Seasons project. And it was a full house the night we went. And there was an audience. It was made up of people from South Africa, people from London, and people from all over the world. And the strange thing was, although many of us were familiar with what came out of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for many people it was to see it on stage and to see it performed and the atrocities that were committed during the apartheid era, it made it so real. And many South Africans came out of that show and they said to me, you know, I'm actually embarrassed to be South African. I realized this was happening, but I didn't realize to the extent it was happening. And Uber and the Truth Commission premiered in South Africa many years ago, but it's still going great guns, and it's being shown to audiences all over the world, and it's part of the SA UK Seasons project. So what this project is doing, it's taking our history, it's putting it on an international stage, and it's laying it bare for everybody to see, and it's getting rave reviews. But it's a remarkable concept, Eben, and I think it's going to go really far.
Now, there's talk of expansion of the entire thing. Are different countries now going to be brought into this exchange project, do you think?
Yes, they are. I had a chat to Monica Newton from the Department of Arts and Culture, and she said, you know, every country that South Africa has approached with this concept, the concept has been really, really warmly welcomed. It was welcomed in France, it was welcomed in the UK. So I believe now that they are in talks with Russia. I think Russia possibly will be next, the SA Russia Seasons project, which sounds quite exciting. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see what Russia can share with us, and likewise. And I know there's possibility of talks with Brazil and China, and also taking this entire concept onto the African continent, and us collaborating with our African brothers and sisters to see what cultural exchanges we can exchange with each other, and grow arts and culture in South Africa and in the other countries. And it's such a great stepping stone, and such a great initiative by the Department of Arts and Culture, giving a platform for young and emerging artists as well as established South African artists to be on a world stage.
Janine, thank you very much for that contribution. The pictures that you brought back were absolutely amazing. We absolutely loved it. There goes Janine Lee down in Port Elizabeth. Of course, she was in London for the UK Seasons project, and what a success story it proved to be. Now we move on. The month-long Eco-Mobility World Festival in the Sandton Central Business District here in Johannesburg has now officially come to an end. One of the objectives of the festival was to give people, well, a preview of future transport, where public transport, walking and cycling become the modes of choice in and around the city. Now, the city of Johannesburg hopes to ensure that Sandton will be decongested and its streets turned into public spaces where people will be able to, well, move from point to point using public transport, walking, cycling, and eco-mobile vehicles. Now, in the studio today, we have the Operations Manager, Mobility and Freight, Mr. Sipho Nhlapo, to look at the successes and challenges of the last month. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you very much for inviting us here.
Your assessment, month-long Eco-Mobility Festival, what?
A success, an absolute success. And I think we've achieved more than we actually had planned for. I guess we've been modest with what we think the people in South Africa and the people in Sandton can actually do. So I think in terms of what we had planned and what we had hoped for, it's been a success. Look, there's been short-term goals, there's mid-term goals, there's as well as long-term goals. In terms of short-term goals, we're hoping that we can actually encourage a discussion and a dialogue around issues of sustainability, congestion, issues of public transport. Then if people have been monitoring the media, I think we've achieved that quite a lot, because there's a lot of discussions that get into that. If you look at the mid-term, it was beginning to encourage people actually to use other alternative modes of transport to access CBD spaces. And then with the numbers that we're getting from Gautrain, from the independent surveyors that conducted some surveys, it shows actually there's been a number of people actually who left their cars, at least for the period of 30 days, and then chose the Gautrain, chose the buses, chose the taxis as their mode of transport.
What about the businesses in Gauteng, in Sandton, who came out and said, oh, this didn't work for us. We've lost up to 60% of revenue for the month. Sandton City, a lot of the tenants, they say they weren't happy with these things. Are you happy to write this off as collateral damage, as part of the process of changing the way we move?
No, by success, it's not necessarily saying there were positive elements that came out. Because remember, our goal was to learn something out of this. And one of the learnings, you're living in a city where it's car-centric. Most of the people that you tend to talk after say, but why didn't you come to Sandton? But I thought it was closed. You see, it was the kind of communication that went through. And some of this communication actually was made by the businesses in space, and even after communicating with them. But I'm saying, in where you are changing things, you're going to experience that shift, where people are beginning to realize, I don't go to shopping now with a car that I have to carry a lot. So my way of shopping changes. So in everything that you do, you're going to see that shift actually happening.
Yes.
And I think this is one of those shifts, and this is one of the lessons that we took out of this exercise.
We're seeing pictures now of a bicycle, of a cyclist on the road traveling. This is one of the future modes of transport that we've sort of looking at in Johannesburg. How do we get people to move a little bit more on two wheels to bring the congestion down? But outside the SABC here, we have the beautiful cycling lanes at great expense that you've built here in and around the city, and people are parking on them so badly so that as a cyclist you can't use them because there's so much oil that's been spilt by the cars who are parking in these. There we have those beautiful cycle lanes, and I must commend the city for putting them in, because that's part of changing the way we move. But how do we change the behavior of drivers to not go and park in over those lanes, as we see all over Johannesburg?
Actually, me coming here, I counted 6 cars just waking up the studio, parked on the cycle lanes. Remember now, this is a new infrastructure on the road that we've never seen before.
These people.
People like that one. We've never seen this infrastructure before. People reacting to this infrastructure is still a strange thing. People still don't know what to do. And then the initial thing is people saying, get the police for them to enforce, get the police to remove them. But remember, the first regulation must start with yourself.
Yes.
It must be that discipline that you say to yourself, I'm not supposed to park here. Because police can be everywhere. Police can be at every angle of the city.
Yes.
So that is the move. But if you look at how we actually been, the Metro Police in terms of their bylaw enforcement have been doing, they've been actually giving people a lot of fines who parks on these cycle lanes.
Yes.
But I think our appeal will be from the city. We're sharing the roads now with other users. The roads are no longer for people only in cars. It's also for cyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah, and people need to sort of change the way they think about transport, and it's also for people on different kinds of wheels all over the city. But now that we've wrapped up this month, you've told us the learnings, and there were plenty. What's the lesson that you take out of it? But what's also the highlight?
Okay, I think firstly it's where do we go from here?
Yeah,
I think that's quite critical. The city will be continuing with building a public transport loop along Friedman Drive, Rivonia Street, and 5th Street. So this is going to be a dedicated public transport lane. So you're going to see Rea Vaya going there.
Yeah.
So it's a part of us actually extending the network. What did we learn as well? One of the biggest things that we learned was that it's going to take time for people to change from one mode to another.
Yeah.
But people are willing to change. And one of the changing is, I rather maybe drive with my colleagues to work, They're still not choosing maybe public transport as a first mode.
Yeah.
So we need to maybe create what we call HOV lanes, high occupancy vehicle lanes, to actually allow for that to happen. And going forward, I think the city is beginning to say we need to create a better network for public transport, because this is how the best performing cities in the world operate.
I thank you for joining us. The city of Johannesburg is changing. You should be changing. We should all think about changing the way that we move in and around our city. It's a beautiful city, and if you get onto your bicycle, you see it in such a different light. Thank you, Mr. Sipho Nhlabdo. He's the Operations Manager, Mobility and Freight here in Johannesburg. I thank you once again for joining us today. Time for us now to move on. Of course, Kendall Mahamati is going to join you after a short break with our wrap of the Monday morning sports news. Don't go away.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
All right, welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamat, and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Now, we top our stories today with the story that businessman Tokyo Sexwale faces a mountain in his bid to become president of World Football's governing body, FIFA. However, he's upbeat on his prospects. He spoke to SABC News earlier, and this is what he had to say.
This is a contest that is taking place globally. It will affect, it's taking place in every country, 205 countries. So it's the largest thing in terms of elections that you can ever have.
Yeah.
And yeah, the candidates, these are good people that I know. These are all friends. People, some of whom I've been with in FIFA for the last 9.5 years. So I know some South Africans think, oh, suddenly, so he wants to be FIFA president? Yeah. Where does it come from? I've been FIFA in front of all of you.
Yeah, for a while.
For a decade. So this time around, it's not me who just announces myself again, but people approach you. I wouldn't have done it really had I not thought that there is a possibility. So some people approach, confederations, associations, individuals, people in business, sponsors, and other people in civil society. That's when I considered, I think I should try it.
Right, now the weekend was huge in terms of sports. Pirates won the derby, the All Blacks made history, and of course they grabbed their third World Cup, and Nico Rosberg won the return to Mexico after a 23-year hiatus, also becoming the first German to win the Grand Prix in Mexico. Now with me to wrap up the weekend is of course Jody Hendricks, our favorite sports analyst. Good morning, welcome back to Newsroom.
Morning, Kendall.
Jody, let's start at the beginning. Start with the Springboks, and let's cover that, get that out of the way. The Springboks got the bronze medal at the Rugby World Cup. Certainly not something to celebrate, but it's been done. What do you make of the Boks and their performance at the World Cup?
Disappointing, really. We went there, a lot of hope. We certainly one of the favourites. We had 4 years to build a team. The balance between the experience and the youth, everybody was excited. And then they bombed in the first game against Japan, Kendall. We all know what happened. Subsequently, they were playing knockout rugby against Samoa, against Scotland, against the USA. And then it took us, almost 80 minutes to beat the Wales. And then we fell short against probably the best team in the world, New Zealand, in the semi-final. And in a scrappy affair, and probably the worst 40 minutes of rugby that I've ever seen in my life, the second half against Argentina on Friday night to claim the bronze medal at the 2015 Rugby World Cup.
Okay, that's done and dusted. Let's move on to the next. Let's talk about the All Blacks. They were absolutely amazing, fantastic. They really peaked at the right time, and they went on to win one of their players, Dan Carter. He went on to win World Player of the Year. Don't want to touch on that just yet, but just about the All Blacks and their performance.
Well, I think there's no doubt that the All Blacks, probably for the past 8 years, the best team in the world. They are on a level where I think they are setting the trend in world rugby, and other teams are trying to catch up and not doing a good job with it, by the way. I think also we've got to go back before 2007, Kendall, when they were knocked out in the quarterfinal stage in France when South Africa won the World Cup. And they did some introspection after that World Cup, and they had a plan. And they brought in Graham Henry. They stuck with Graham Henry. He built a winning culture in the team, and they've kept it. And they had a contingency plan. When Henry left, Steve Hansen came in, and I read this morning Steve Hansen said that he's probably not going to stay on after 2017.
And one thing that people need to know is that Steve Hansen was all along part of the coaching backroom stuff.
I think that's the big difference. If we're going to have to make an example between South Africa and the All Blacks, all for New Zealand, the assistant coaches have coached Super Rugby level, they've coached international level. Wayne Smith was an All Black coach and he went back to assist Graham Henry. So it shows you the commitment where Heineke Meyer took varsity and Vodacom Cup coaches to assist him, and I think that's the difference between the team. But Kendall, no doubt the best players in the world, the best coach in the world, and the best team in the world when you're talking rugby at the moment.
Quick one about Dan Carter though. He hardly played any rugby. Did he really deserve to be the World Player of the Year?
Well, I think he had a decent World Cup. If you had to ask me, was he my World Player of the tournament, I would probably have gone with Sanchez from Argentina. But we all know that Dan's a legend. I think it was also maybe just a bit courtesy from World Rugby. If Dan Carter still plays international rugby next year, it will be, I don't see it happening. But I think it was also just to say thank you for what you've done for the game the past 10, 12 years. And, thank you for what you've done. And to give him that. But if we had to go on form, Nicolas Sanchez was probably the informed fly at the World Cup.
And Richie McCaw himself put his hand up definitely to be voted Player of the Year, no?
Yeah, 148 caps, and what a way to go. The first captain in rugby history to win back-to-back World Cups. Legendary status in the world of rugby in New Zealand, and I think they are well-deserved winners, and also a great captain.
Right, now let's bring it back home. For some people, it's ecstatic news. For some people, it's sore news. It's Monday morning, and on Saturday at the Soweto Derby, Orlando Pirates, they beat Kaizer Chiefs 3-1. There are a couple of things that are quite big about this. One, Orlando Pirates were not on form coming into this match. And two, this is probably the highest scoring derby in a long time.
It's good to see that sort of local soccer producing goals again, because I looked at some of the other results of the weekend and there was a couple of 0-0 draws. So it's a good thing that, the players found the back of the net. And you say that Pirates were not struggling. They were struggling locally in the PSL, yes. But if you look at how well they're doing in Africa, they're playing in the African. So, I'm sure Eric Tinkler might differ with you. And I also think they are doing well. It just...
All I'm doing is I'm repeating what fans are saying. Fans are very upset that Pirates have hardly won any matches. In fact, I do believe it's probably their second match that they win in the league this year, and it's a big one.
They're still lingering at the bottom of the league, of the table. But I think that with Pirates, you need to put it in context, Kendall, and they've been playing a lot of soccer. They've been traveling in and out of Africa, and I think that takes its toll. If you come back to South Africa on a Sunday or a Monday night, you're playing a game on a Wednesday morning, jet lag, fatigue. We're not making excuses. I think they really need to up their form in the PSL, but a win against Chiefs in the Derby, a good way to start.
Fantastic. Even Gabuza got his first goal for Orlando Pirates since he joined them, and the first thing he did was to run to his coach to thank him for standing by him and giving him support.
And that goal was actually the clincher, where you can actually, because all along I watched the game and Chiefs were attacking, and then all of a sudden when the score went to 3-0, I think everybody knew it's done and dusted. It's 3 points to Pirates.
Well done, and congratulations to Orlando Pirates for doing that. They've got bragging rights going into this weekend's derby. There's another derby coming up. This time it's Telkom Knockout, but we'll discuss that later on towards the end of the week. Let's go on to other sports news that made history this weekend. Nico Rosberg in the Formula 1 Grand Prix, he won. The first German to win in Mexico ever, and this is after 23 years that there'd been no Grand Prix in Mexico.
And 21st Grand Prix in Mexico in 23 years, and well done to Nico Rosberg. Also, I think Lewis securing the title last week in the USA, no pun intended, but I think he took his foot off the pedal a bit. So his teammate now, we all know the rivalry between the two, but I think Rosberg had a good race, and also good to see that the two Red Bulls, not one ended on the podium, but in the top 5 to have 2 of your teams. And I think that was the battle for me all season. We all knew that Rosberg and Hamilton was probably going to dominate. The big question was who was going to be that second team. I'm a bit disappointed in Ferrari, but also well done to Red Bull for the season that they've done. But I also think with a couple of races left, Rosberg still has, don't be surprised if we see him taking pole position or the podium.
Yeah, no, it's got quite a lot of poles. This particularly, I think he's got 11 or so, and this was his 4th win in those 11. Straight line speed, Williams always had it. In fact, they had the best straight line speed in this particular Grand Prix. Maybe next year, Williams as well as Ferrari, they bring it up a notch and then contest and compete with Mercedes?
There's a lot of talk about constructors and, manufacturers that will be joining Formula 1 next year. It's all, every team wants to win, and it's almost like, if you want to make the comparison with McLaren, the All Blacks in rugby, they are setting the trend and the others are trying to catch up and looking at what they are doing and trying to implement it. And next year, like I said, still a couple of races left this year, but next year definitely some of the other teams should step up.
Very good. Jody, thank you so much for wrapping up this weekend with us. We thoroughly enjoyed it, covering all the previews to all the Rugby World Cup matches, as well as some of the matches, and now closing it all up with this very good and excellent wrap.
Thank you very much.
Now, Jody Hendricks, ladies and gentlemen, are helping us to bring you the best of the best of those cracking moments from the weekend. Now on to other sporting news. Roger Federer beat Rafael Nadal for the first time in more than 3 years to win his 7th Basel title. This on Sunday, the 1st of November. The result, 6-3, 5-7, 6-3.
Top seed Federer, whose rivalry with Nadal is the stuff of legends, lost their last 5 meetings and had not beaten the Spaniard since he won a semi-final at Indian Wells in 2012. Playing his 12th final in his hometown, Federer survived a break point in the opening service game before grabbing the upper hand. The Swiss broke twice to take the opening set and then went about putting pressure on the third seed Nadal at the start of the second, crafting a break point at 3-2 ahead. Nadal, however, dug deep to stay in the contest and then claimed his first break of the match for a 6-5 lead as Federer netted a backhand. The Swiss broke decisively to lead 5-3 in the third set and then served out to take the title, the 88th of his career, after 2 hours and 3 minutes of battle.
Very satisfying, of course. I mean, you can't beat him if you don't play him, so of course that also goes hand in hand. But regardless, it's always a pleasure playing against him, even if you lose sometimes or many times. It was great playing here against him here in Basel, and of course getting a win against him. It's very special. So of course it was a very important day in my career again.
Now, early in the day, 5th seed Agnieszka Radwanska of Poland had won the biggest title of her career when she triumphed in the final of the WTA Final Tennis Tournament in Singapore. Radwanska battled hard to beat 4th seeded Czech Petra Kvitova in 3 sets.
With 6 wins out of 8 matches between the two, Kvitova was the overwhelming favourite to be crowned Singapore champion. But Radwanska had other plans. She broke the Kvitova's serve twice to clinch the first set 6-2 in just half an hour. The second set was tight. Despite breaking the former Wimbledon champion serve again in the first game, Radwanska lost her own in the 6th. Kvitova then secured another breakthrough in the 10th game and levelled matters when she took the set 6-4. Radwanska had a taste of her own medicine when Kvitova broke her in the first game of the 3rd set. But the Pole broke back immediately and never looked back. She broke the Kvitova serve one last time and held on to win the set 6-4 and the match.
In the important moment, I was really doing the right thing, and well, that was really the close match. Of course, I had my chance in that second set, but that doesn't matter how I won, so I'm just extremely happy about that.
Although this was Radwanska's 17th title win, there is little doubt that this is the most significant victory of her career. Liesl Zankel, SABC News.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to leave it with the sports. But as you can see, the team is standing by. Eben's standing by to chat to you about a little bit of what he asked you about earlier this morning.
Yeah, we've been running this question the whole morning. Elvis has been running on the news. We've run throughout the show. How is South Africa's water crisis affecting you? And there have been lots of comments, isn't it?
There have been a few. Eben Odette says at SABC Newsroom, no effect in my personal space, lucky or a privileged space.
Yes, Odette, you're obviously sitting at home right now, not having to work.
And then Musadi Wahope reckons, SABC Newsroom, my estate says my garden doesn't comply with aesthetic rules since I left it dry.
Yeah, that's a little bit of you.
Tongue-in-cheek, that one is. Ethel Pullen says that every house should have rainwater tanks, and I think that's a good suggestion. Millions of litres are wasted every day.
Yeah, millions of... you should. It's not that expensive. There we have got a Facebook comment as well. Let's have a look. We're getting Facebook ready. I can tell you the water tank thing, I think, guys, is a fantastic initiative.
It's one of those things, you know,
it's less than $1,500 to put a big plastic tank in, and you've got rainwater for the whole... Yeah, that's is it? Mo Maswabi. In my opinion, I think global warming is starting to show its true effect, and I think great measures need to be taken to save every drop of water. This is a major environmental issue. Yes, that's what we highlighted on the show today, guys.
Definitely a big life issue, I'd say, more than just environmental.
So it's those little things that you can do at home to really save some water. You know, I indicated earlier, if you shower with a partner. That can assist you, you know, to save the water. You can also, of course, brush your teeth with a cup instead of...
The simplest thing, just don't let those taps drip. I mean, just close them tightly.
Drip, 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 drip away. Yes, some of us can't be showering with partners and the like. Shower with your children then. Save water that way. Thank you, Elvis, for that tip. Are we going to go to weather as we say goodbye? We don't have time for the weather update. You'll have to get it in the next hour. From the Newsroom team here, it's been great with you on this Monday.
Cheerio.
Ligamos.